Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put him
Not good. Believe me, not good.
Hello, dissidents. Good morning to all. We have a special guest joining us here. She is, of course, the host of the post-Assange Radical Trad Wife Story Hour, Misty Winston. Welcome, Misty.
I am the queen of the trad wives. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, she finally is realizing her dream.
Yes.
Of being
I'm embracing my
trad
true
wife.
self. Yes.
Yes. You were telling me you make the meatloaf in the heels now.
My husband's seriously, we were talking about this. My husband is going to be quite shocked that this is my new. He's going to be wondering who I'm cooking that meatloaf for, because it's not him.
Well, wait until the money starts rolling in.
Yeah. I mean, if he realizes it's just for a grift, I'm sure I could get him on board.
Exactly.
No question. I am also the queen of grifters, so.
I've heard that. I've heard all the people who spent years of their lives trying to get Julian Assange free. All grifters.
Total grifters. Yeah.
Grifters. Because I always say when people say things like that, there are so many grifts that are so much easier if that's what you're really trying to do.
I chose the hardest grift on earth. I mean, be serious. One of the most controversial figures, impossible to even get it talked about, covered. Even in independent media, it was difficult to get it covered. Spent thousands of dollars out of pocket. I mean, if I am in fact a grifter, I have to be the worst grifter on planet Earth. So,
That's it. It's an insult to our intelligence to suggest we could not find a better grift.
Right.
That is what is most insulting to me about it. If you are calling us grifters, you're saying we're phenomenally stupid.
Yeah.
I might actually do. I covered this in the live show. I was talking to you about it before we came on. This guy, just because I live in New York, he drives me nuts. Cash Jordan. Some people know who he is in our audience. This guy, I started watching one of his videos the other day because I was just like, how does he justify some of these headlines? Like, New York is so dangerous, no one can live here. So he's covering a story about people who are, I guess, purse snatching on mopeds. Okay, it's a city of 8 million fucking people. Yeah. You could find a lot of random stories. It's not like, Honduras. You got people riding around on mopeds grabbing purses everywhere. And you watch the video, he doesn't give you any numbers. He doesn't give you any specifics on this. He makes it sound like, oh man, you go to New York, you better watch out. They're gonna come by on the moped. I've never seen anyone do like a purse snatching on a moped in New York.
Listen, fear mongering is very profitable. It really is about anything. Yeah. I mean, if you can fear monger people and scare people into thinking that you have some, really important information for your safety, it's really easy.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah.
It's hitting that animal brain.
Yeah, I mean, that's politicians. If you notice, politicians will very often, if they want to sell you something, they will start with something fear-inducing first. They will say something that is scary first, and then they will sell you their bullshit. Because once your brain switches into fear mode, it's a lot easier to manipulate you. I mean, this is a well-known tactic.
Well, that's why I follow financial news, partly because I find that's like following the racing sheet forums.
Yeah.
Like those guys are degenerate gamblers. So when they talk about politics, it tends to be more neutral than any other kind of press because they just want to figure out what bet to place.
Yeah.
So they're not going to tend to slant the information in the same way that other types of journalism does. But the grift in that is the stock market is crashing next week. Expert says could drop by 78% by next month. Yo, that is a cottage industry in financial journalism. There are constantly articles like that because that fear, people go and read it.
Yeah, it sells for sure. No question.
All right. So speaking of fear, our illustrious former president went and made, I believe this is the first extended sit-down interview he's had since the assassination attempt. And he did not disappoint. He was in rare form. And there was actually a Politico article that dropped this morning that was interesting about how they had a strategy where they were going to go after, and this is very much in keeping with what my partner Keaton says they should be doing. They had a strategy to just go after her on immigration, go after her on inflation, go after her on the border, go after her as a radical, and that all fell apart as soon as Trump got in front of an audience.
Yeah.
So let's we have a few clips here. We'll take a look at the first one.
Today, you have pushed false claims about. A lot of people did not think it was appropriate for you to be here today. You have pushed false claims about some of your rivals, from Nikki Haley to former President Barack Obama, saying that they were not born in the United States, which is not true. You have told 4 congresswomen of color who were American citizens to go back to where they came from. You have used words like animal and rabid to describe black district attorneys. You've attacked black journalists, calling them a loser, saying the questions that they ask are, quote, stupid and racist. You've had dinner with a white supremacist at your Mar-a-Lago resort. So my question, sir, now that you are asking black supporters to vote for you, why should black voters trust you after you have used language like that?
Well, first of all, I don't think I've ever been asked a question so in such a horrible manner. First question. You don't even say, hello, how are you? Are you with ABC? Because I think they're a fake news network, a terrible network. And
some of your own support.
Okay, so okay, I almost cut in Dr. Evil there because that's what he sounds like. You don't even say hello. You don't even say toodaloo before the attacks begin.
Oh God, that's good. I didn't even think of that. You should have cut that in. That's good. Yes. Oh man.
I was like, you know why I didn't? Because I know myself. I'm an obsessive freak, and I said, once you start going down that road, you're gonna be here until 3 a.m. cutting in film clips. Just don't even start going there.
Yeah,
but that's what he said. You didn't even say hello. It was terrible. And for the rest of the night, he likes to do that. He likes to pick somebody who he's just gonna deflect to for the rest of the night. So for the rest of the 35 minutes, he kept coming back to her. My cognition is fine because I got attacked in such a terrible way at the beginning, and I was fine the whole night.
I just wonder, what did they expect from this? I mean, I get why they had him. He's a former president currently running for re-election. So obviously that's a conversation you want to have. And as you said, I think, honestly, this is the first like in-depth interview he's done in a very long time, not just since the
Mhm.
assassination attempt, in a long time, which I think is a whole other conversation we should be having. The fact that our elected officials and people running for office very often avoid those situations and avoid questions and avoid interviews and things like that unless they know it's going to be a softball, very supportive interview. But yeah, I mean, just what did you think he was going to come in there and kiss your ass? Or it's just very bizarre. But he's not wrong. That is a very weird way to kick things off. I don't know. This whole thing, it's just comedy gold. Honestly, it's just comedy gold.
I think they're in a position where, okay, you are the National Association of Black Journalists. The former president and a presidential candidate is offering to come.
Yeah.
You really cannot, in good
You can't turn it
conscience,
down. Yeah.
say no. But they don't want to get the treatment from the libs. Oh, you softballed him. That's why she opened that way. Now, the next thing is the thing that really made the headlines is litigating Kamala's blackness. You know, there have been many moments where Trump has said things like, I like soldiers that don't get captured, where people wrote his political obituary. And if you listen to the reaction in that room to him saying, she decided she was black, a lot of people in that room, and this is black journalists, liked that. A lot of them like that. That is a side of the story nobody's talking about. So
it's a legitimate criticism.
Well, that's what nobody wants to talk about. Now, is it something he should have gotten into? Probably
not.
But then again, a lot of times people have thought that about Trump, and it wound up redounding to his benefit. Yeah. So let's watch that moment, but pay attention to the crowd reaction. Later on, he starts litigating her intellectual ability. That gets a very negative reaction. But not that. Listen to the crowd reaction and we'll discuss.
Including Republicans on Capitol Hill, have labeled Vice President Kamala Harris, who is the first Black and Asian American woman to serve as vice president and be on a major party ticket, as a DEI hire. Is that acceptable language to you? And will you tell those Republicans and those supporters to stop it?
How do you define DEI? Go ahead. How do you define
diversity, equity, and inclusion?
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Is that what your definition?
That is
give me a definition then. Would you give me a definition
DEI.
of that? Give me a definition.
Sir, I'm asking you a question, a very direct question.
Define it for me, if you would.
I just defined it, sir. Do you believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is only on the ticket because she is a black woman?
Well, I can say no. I think it's maybe a little bit different. So I've known her a long time indirectly, not directly very much. And she was always of Indian heritage, and she was only promoting Indian heritage. I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. So I don't know, is she Indian or is she black?
She has always identified as a black woman. She went to a historically black college.
I respect either one, but she obviously doesn't, because she was Indian all the way, and then all of a sudden she made a turn, and she became a black person.
Just to be clear, sir, do you believe that she is...
I think somebody should look into that, too, when you continue in a very hostile, nasty tone.
It's a direct question, sir. Do you believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is a DEI hire, as some Republicans
really don't
have
know.
said?
I mean, I really don't know. Could be. There are some, and there are...
Okay, so that's the one that's really making the headlines.
Yeah.
But if you listen to the crowd, and
they're laughing.
You'll see the difference when he starts questioning her cognitive ability. Universally negative. This is something that, he's probably not complexionally qualified to comment on.
Yeah.
There are fault lines in the black community between island people of African descent and African Americans, a feeling that they come over here and go into the professions, and some of these politicians like Obama, who are not actually rooted in the African American experience, claim that experience and claim that identity for themselves. They're circulating clips of Kamala Harris identifying as Indian, depending on the context. So Trump is hitting on a legit fault line in the Black community. And that's why some people in that room did have a positive reaction to it. They did. If you listen, and you'll see the difference when we look at the cognitive, where there's a very different reaction when he starts talking about our cognitive capacity, because that really has very direct racist overtones.
Yeah.
But the feeling that Kamala, especially given her record as a prosecutor, is claiming this Black identity that she doesn't legitimately or authentically have. I've seen Black commentators talk about. Tomorrow we're interviewing Glenn Lowry, actually. He'll be the next interview that we drop on Tuesday. And, a lot of commentators from that community do not like her throwing Megan Thee Stallion up on stage twerking at a presidential event. And they're saying, they don't, when they go to talk to Latino people, they don't talk to them like that. They don't represent them that way. When they talk to Asian people, why do you think that's the only way to appeal to Black people? You're going to have somebody shaking their ass on the stage. It's insulting. And her going into this urban accent on stage.
Yes.
But man, everybody knows she never talked like that in her life. Legitimately. So that is why in this room of Black journalists, a lot of people laughed. A lot of people laughed, and that's
the Black community. It's insulting. It's insulting to. I mean, listen. Obviously, I am white as fuck. I can't speak on how this should or shouldn't make Black people feel. And obviously, she does have. Her father is mixed race. He is Black. She is very mixed race, but she grew up with her mother, who is Indian. And so the idea, to me, it screams of political opportunism. It screams of her wanting to use the Black voters. As they did with Barack Obama. Caitlin Johnstone has a great tweet about this, about how, they're very excited to potentially be able to use Kamala Harris to push all of their awful things and use the Black community to do it. And this has been an issue. This is not something new. This has been an issue within the Black communities for a very long time. They talk about it on a regular basis. They talk about the way that the Democratic Party has used them over the years, over the decades, and has really just said, listen, you have nowhere else to go. What are you going to do? Go vote for Republicans? So it's very cynical. And the accent thing drives me crazy because it's a Hillary Clinton thing. And I know the whole code switching thing. I'm very aware of that. And that's not specific just to Black people. I do that. I mean, there's certain tones that I take when I'm speaking with my kids' teachers that I might not, I don't use that same tone when I'm speaking to my friends at the gym. You know what I mean? Like, we all do that. But I think it's incredibly cynical. And the Hillary Clinton thing, if you go back, there's many montages of her where, she's in Arkansas, so she suddenly has a Southern accent. And it's,
she's all hat, no cattle.
Yeah. It's disingenuous, it's inauthentic, and it's gross. And I think people see through it. And I think that, frankly, to me, it's offensive. Like, just the way that they're, like you said, throwing Megan Thee Stallion up on stage to twerk. It's just like, I mean, come on, really? That's the level of respect we're showing here to Black voters? I mean, it's just dumb.
Right. And that is why the reaction to that statement was, and this is not reported. No one's gonna, in their little write-up about this, no one's gonna say the reaction was mixed, but it was. It was. And there's a reason for that, because it's not like you said that about, Barbara Lee. It would let people would go, what? Yeah. It lands because there's an element of truth to it, because Kamala so clearly is someone parachuting in to represent herself as part of that community, when as a prosecutor, all she did was what you're describing. She works for the powerful and puts this Black face, so claimed, on white supremacist policies. And that's why in this room of Black journalists, where presumably most of them know her record, that did not play as negatively as it's being spun in the press. I
do think that he is walking into minefields, though.
Sure.
He's, and I think I was on Critical Hour maybe a couple weeks ago, or whenever it was that she was announced that she was going to be the actual nominee, and we were talking about this, and that her being the nominee opens up a lot of minefields for Trump, because he doesn't have, as you said, he doesn't know when to shut up. He has no gift for subtlety. He just says stuff out loud that he's probably not supposed to say, and he likes insults, and he likes to get down in the mud and stuff, and so this opens up a lot of really interesting opportunities where he's going to stick his foot in his mouth. And I think that if he would have stuck to what you were just talking about and talked about her policies that negatively impacted Black communities and did the Tulsi Gabbard thing and just stuck to the policy instead of, some of the other things that he wades into in terms of her intelligence and stuff like that, I think that would be probably more effective. But I don't know. Like, this is going to be so comedy gold for the next several months, watching him try to navigate this situation.
Well, that's why I keep paraphrasing Les Moonves. He said, Trump is terrible for the country, but he's good for CBS.
Yes.
A Trump versus Harris race is terrible for the country, but it's good for podcasters.
And comedians, if there are any comedians out there that still have balls, it's good for them too.
They're making a comeback. I've often compared him to Rodney Dangerfield. He has this very snobs versus slobs stand-up comic, Catskills comic kind of an appeal. Yeah. Honestly, I watched this whole thing. It felt to me like a comedian going, or that big comedians like Chappelle will very often hit small clubs when they're working on material.
Yeah.
So if you hang out in comedy clubs, a very famous comedian might just walk in and do a set because they're trying stuff out. That's what this felt like to me. They switched to Kamala, and he's not sure how to handle it, so he's trying different things. Because what you're talking about, the line of attack, the immigration and the economy and inflation, he did keep going back to that. That's just not what makes headlines.
Yeah.
These other things, he was feeling out like, let's see if this works. Let's see if that works. He's trying to find his act, what his act is going to be for this election. All right, so let's look at his next pearl of wisdom here.
From the border are millions and millions of people that happen to be taking Black jobs. You had the best.
What exactly is a Black job, sir?
A Black job is anybody that has a job. That's what it is. Anybody that has a job.
All right.
And
Mr.
they're taking the employment away from Black people. They're coming in, they're invading. It's an invasion of millions of people, probably 15, 16, 17 million people. I have a feeling it's much more than that. And everybody's been seeing what's happened. The first group of people, the Black population, is affected most by that. And Kamala is allowing it to happen. She's the border czar. She's the worst border czar in the history of the world. There's never been a border czar like this. She's never even essentially been. She said she was there once, but not the right part of the border.
When you look at...
All right, so that's getting back on message.
Yeah.
That's where he should stay. That's really, honestly, that's where he should have spent the whole night. People really hate this statistic. But Black men are the most opposed to immigration of any demographic group. That's just a fact. You can look it up. That is for obvious reasons, because they're most threatened. This is why people are always shocked that very often Latino groups are not a monolith on immigration, because whose job is threatened? People who have immigrated themselves. They may be here on a visa. They may have a green card. They're the ones in New York here working in the bodegas. They don't want a bunch of immigrants coming in. So making this kind of an argument that, hey, whose jobs are they coming for? That's his best argument in front of a Black audience in terms of the kinds of themes that he likes to play on. So that's an example where he did go back on message, and I suspect that's mostly what you're going to hear. going.
That's what we should, if he's smart, which it's questionable, but I think that if he's smart and if his team is smart, they need to just listen, Kamala Harris will shoot herself in the foot if you let her. She's proven that time and time and time again. You don't have to go after her and attack her in that manner. She's going to do that for you. So I think he would be very wise to stay away from the race stuff, to stay away from the gender stuff, and to just stick to messaging and to just stick to, I mean, obviously you can get some zingers in there because that's what he's known for. I think he has to do that, at least when he's at his own rallies playing to his own audience. I think that he's obviously going to throw in some insults and some zingers. Everybody should expect that. But I think generally speaking, he needs to just let her hang herself. You know what I mean? Like, give her enough rope, let her take care of herself. That will happen.
Although I might do, now that my Star Wars epic is done, I'm looking at going back to, we started doing our version of radars. We called them shit posts. We haven't done it in a long time. We got too busy. I kind of want to do one on the way that they're going to run Kamala, because it seems to me that Biden got them into the habit of having a president that's not the president in any sense, where they just hid him in a basement because they had COVID. And they were able to carry that through to after he got elected. They just trot him out and let him pretend to be the president, while Jake Sullivan and Lloyd Austin and the rest of these deep state ghouls have actually been running the country. Somebody made the point. Sullivan and Austin were just talking about how they're going to respond to what's happening in the Middle East, which we'll get into later with the assassinations and Iran threatening retaliation against Israel. And somebody said, well, where's the president? Like, these guys are running the country. They said, we're not going to allow. Well, okay. So what does the so-called president have to say? With Kamala, it seems like this is the apotheosis of what the deep state has always wanted. Okay, well, we're just going to run her campaign. We're going to completely control her image. We're going to completely control her messaging and her appearances. And what they learned with Biden and what they got the public into the habit of was very low expectations in terms of spontaneous engagement from the candidate and from the president. Biden hardly ever did a press conference. So now they're saying, well, yeah, Kamala is terrible, unscripted, but she can deliver a line. Well, we've already trained people not to expect that kind of accountability and engagement. So what if we could just give her lines, put her in front of audiences, have her give a speech? She can give a speech if she has a script, and just never have her respond to any questions except with very friendly journalists who are going to stay on script so that we can prep her thoroughly ahead of time. Just load her up with that little girl was me zingers, and that's it. And we have a Kamala bot that we can trot out as the candidate and maybe even as the president. I think that is the plan. What's up?
Hey, how's it going? Thanks, Misty, for covering. Good
congratulations, good sir.
I want August take.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, what's August think?
He's a little upset now. So
you're blurry. You're blurry for some reason.
No, I know, because I don't have my full setup here. Because
I see.
Sign on for a couple.
You're on the computer cam.
Yeah, I'm on the computer cam, so not the full setup. But I did want to chime in for a minute on this one, because my running prediction now is that the Republicans are going to get baited into a culture war, get pulled off message. I said that 2 days ago, and here we are. 2 days later, Trump up here saying she's not black, she's Indian. As you're going to see later in this segment, they put a banner up at their rally about her touting her Indian heritage. It's a loser. I'm telling you, it's a big loser. Doesn't matter how it went over in the room. That's not the point. They got the sound bites they needed. You're getting pulled off message. And if you're going to do a pile on like this, whether it's about, is she black? Is she Indian? Is she this? Is she that? Or then he gets into her cognitive ability, which is more overtly racist, obviously. If you're going to do a pile on like that against the person very personally, it almost always backfires. Almost always backfires. Look at 1998. Look at what they did with Bill Clinton. Did the sleaziest thing you could do. He solicited oral sex from this infatuated 24-year-old intern, then encouraged her to lie about it under oath if necessary. And they busted him on it, and they hammered him, and they hammered him, and they hammered him, and they caught him doing a truly despicable thing where everybody had every right to be furious.
Yeah, you mean with the cigar?
By him. Well, that too. But look what happened in the midterms that year. What happened?
I hear it was
hold on a
just
second. Let me make this point.
His
This is a very
humidor
important
was
point.
broken.
Look at what happened in the midterms that year. The Republicans got routed. The Democrats won. Even though they caught him doing something terrible, people do not like a pile-on like that. The only person you could get away with that against is Hillary Clinton because she is so uniquely loathsome. This is someone who helped her husband get away with numerous sexual crimes so that she could foist herself upon the country as the spearhead of the American feminist movement. So you basically have a blank check to be the biggest asshole you want to be when you're running against her. That is a very unique situation. These kinds of pile-ons, these kinds of personal things do not play well to normie voters. Normie voters swing elections, and they're getting dragged off message, and the polls are starting to indicate that. You're starting to see every once in a while a poll, Kamala +4 nationwide.
Mm-hmm.
It's still a very uphill battle for the Democrats because they're spread very thin across the electoral map. They have to win a bunch of states that they're not favored to win at the moment. But if you want to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory and you're the Republicans, you're well on your way to doing that with this. 100%.
I agree. Yeah, I'll send you over that Politico article. That's basically what Republicans are saying. They say the Trump team had a plan.
Yeah.
And as soon as Trump got in front of an audience, he threw it out the window.
Well, that's what made yesterday significant is because, look, the right-wing trolls on Twitter are going to do that. That's what they do. And why wouldn't they? I mean, Kamala, she's a ridiculous person. She's meme bait, right? Of course you're going to make fun of her on Twitter. When it starts coming from the candidate, that's when you have a much bigger problem.
Yes.
Right.
That's what I said on Critical Hour whenever it was that she was announced to be the nominee. I'm like, this presents Trump was going to walk into the presidency, no question about it. He was going to. Exactly. Joe Biden had no chance, and with Kamala Harris now being the nominee, there are so many minefields that he now has to navigate, and he's just not good at that. He's not good at knowing when to shut up, and I think that is that's going to be very interesting over the next couple of months for sure.
Right.
All right. Well, I got to check back out. I just wanted to get that in, but thanks, guys. And last two segments of the day, folks, are on Rumble exclusively. So be prepared for a Rumble switch since we can talk about, or you guys can talk about those international affairs the right way.
Actual
grown-ups
things.
who don't have to censor every word you say. So that's going to be newdissidents.com/Rumble toward the end of the show. You'll have a heads up and then there'll be a 5-minute break. But thank you guys. And sorry to the patrons for having to bail on you yesterday. We're going to make that up with a bonus stream next month. Had to bring the guy in for some blood work because he was turning pretty yellow.
Oh,
so
no. Is he okay?
Those Billy levels checked.
The Billy Rubin?
He is.
Yeah.
He is. But
Okay,
it was
good.
looking like it was going the wrong way for a while. So we had to check it just to make sure he didn't have to go back to the hospital for phototherapy. But
maybe we'll do a bonus from Chicago.
Yeah,
Kid is supposed to take me to a pizza joint. Maybe we'll live stream it.
Oh no!
Yeah, there you
Pizza
go.
Wars.
All right, thanks, guys. Good to see you again, Misty. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
for coming in.
thank you. Of course.
All right. Bye-bye, guys.
All right, man. All right.
But listen, I just wanted to point out because you were talking about that we've been kind of conditioned by Biden that a president doesn't have to give press. This has been happening if you think about when Hillary Clinton was running for president in 2015, 2016, there was a whole thing going on where she wasn't doing press conferences for hundreds of days on end. So this is a long-standing thing. And also WikiLeaks revealed that, the mainstream media is, totally collaborating with, at least they were with Hillary Clinton. I mean, Glenn Thresh very famously sent an article to them in advance and was like, hey, I realize that this makes me a hack, but if you want to look this over and give me any notes before I publish it, feel free to do that. I mean, there was a list of dozens of reporters who were, going to off-record dinners and parties and things like that with the Hillary Clinton campaign. So this is a long-standing thing. American voters have been long conditioned to expect very little from presidential candidates and presidents. So this has been set up for a very long time.
That's true. But COVID gave them the opportunity to take it to another level.
For sure.
And now I think with Kamala, they're saying, hang on. If we have a puppet that's not demented, that would be awesome. And not only that, if our puppet is a black woman, so we can pull the identity politics card anytime they criticize her.
Yep.
Wow, that is the jackpot. That is the
Oh,
ideal. That is
yeah.
the deep state dream. So I think that's what they're doing with her, and so far it's effective. Like if you just throw her out on stage to give a speech, she's fine. She's fine.
Yeah.
It's when you ask her a question spontaneously.
She's still very awkward
just-
and giggles at inappropriate moments. And I mean, she can deliver a line and a zinger here and there, but she is still very awkward. But yeah, she is much better when scripted than she is off the cuff. There's no question about it. But the whole you can't criticize her because she's a black woman is so annoying to me. I've already been called a racist several times.
Oh yeah.
It's
that's why they love figures like Kamala. They love figures like Jim Clyburn. They love Jim Clyburn. Oh my God, they're riding off into the sunset with their saddlebags full of cash while he's calling you a racist for attacking him. They love figures like this.
Yeah.
Kamala is their dream. That's why 5 minutes after Hillary lost, I had never heard of Kamala. And I knew, when you talk to really indoctrinated libs, you know what the corporate media is saying by what they say. That was how I first heard of her, because shit libs I knew started talking about this Kamala person. I was like, who the hell are they talking about? And then
she's
I saw how they
Hillary's
were
disciple,
programming their lib army to get behind her 8 years ago. They were so mad that the voters expressed an opinion about her. And look, in the end, they got what they wanted, right? Here's somebody who had to drop out because she's running fourth in her home state. Now this is what they wanted. That's what they got.
That's
all
funny.
right, so let's continue.
JD Vance, is he ready on day one?
No.
Does he what?
Ready on day one, if he has to be.
I've always had great respect for him, and for the other candidates too. But I will say this, and I think this is well documented. Historically, the vice president, in terms of the election, does not have any impact. I mean, virtually no impact. I said, Joe and I will go and take a cognitive.
So not a resounding vote of confidence for Vance. He goes on to basically say, if you like me, you're voting for me. Don't worry about Vance. Vance, one suspects he would not have picked Vance if he knew he was going to be running against Kamala. It was a very we got it in the bag pick.
Yeah.
This doesn't surprise me. I figured maybe he got better, but I remember with Vance, I was curious, so I took a look.
He's awful.
Yeah, when he was running for Senate, I watched him because with the book and with the backstory, I said, well, is this guy really going to be able to seize the mantle of MAGA right-wing populism? And he's not a natural. He is not a natural. I thought that when he was running for Senate, he hasn't improved.
No, I'm in Ohio, so I'm very familiar with JD Vance, and he's awful. And he is, I mean, completely not that it matters, because Trump wasn't qualified, Kamala's not qualified. I think qualifications have been thrown out the window at this point. It doesn't matter what kind of experience or any kind of resume that you may have. But he's very young, new to the game, and I think that's why they like him. He's very malleable. He's also Peter Thiel's puppet. So that's a big part of it. The PayPal mafia has very much got their finger in their hand in that nominating process. I think I'm not sure that was really a Trump decision to begin with. I think that's clear by the way that you hear him talk about it. I don't think that was necessarily a Trump decision. But yeah, JD Vance is, he's irrelevant because he's just going to be vice president. And we all know how important the vice president is. But the idea that
under Trump.
Yeah. And the idea that Trump is old. So, the idea that he is literally one heartbeat away from the presidency is really something. But yeah, he sucks. He's always sucked.
Yeah, I think also, though, Trump has a pattern of surrounding himself with people who don't have any charisma or particular talent in front of the camera because he doesn't want to be outshone.
Yes, 100%.
I have always said, if he had allowed Steve Bannon to be his Karl Rove, if his ego had not been too big to have someone in the White House who was getting that much press. That's really what it came down to, I think. He didn't like the Bannon makes headlines. He'd be in his second term right now. Bannon
I think if he knew that it was Kamala, I think he would have chosen Tulsi Gabbard.
Gabbard would have been the smart play.
That would have
been the smart play.
Perfect.
Especially now with Kamala, it would have neutralized a lot of that. And she had a critique of Kamala that he can't use, because a lot of the best critiques of Kamala are from the left.
Yeah.
That she kept people locked up beyond their sentence.
Hid evidence that would have exonerated people, kept people in prison to, maintain the labor program, basically slavery. But yeah, and I mean, Tulsi Gabbard eviscerated her in like 42 seconds. It was over.
He could have had it both ways. They could have gone after her as being a radical, and Tulsi could have gone after her as being an overzealous prosecutor. But he went for Vance. All right, so this is the one where he really lost the room.
No impact. I said, Joe and I will go and take a cognitive test. Now, I'd do it with her, too. I would do it with her also. You know what? She failed her law exam. She didn't pass her law exam, so maybe she wouldn't pass the cognitive test.
Mr. President,
are you saying she wouldn't pass? Just to be clear,
I'm just giving you the facts.
To be clear, you don't think Harris
how do you intend
She didn't pass her bar exam, and she didn't think she would pass it, and she didn't think she was going to ever pass it. And I don't know what happened. Maybe she passed it.
She did pass it.
There's a man over here. I think he must work.
Mr. President, I would love.
But people died in Seattle.
Yeah, that was you want
not
to talk
good,
about
Trump.
stepping in a landmine. When he did the "now she wants to be black" thing, that is hitting on genuine fault lines in the black community. That's why the reaction was mixed. That. When you start talking about maybe this clearly intelligent woman is stupid, now you're getting into racist tropes that nobody is going to respond positively to.
Yeah. No, I mean, that made me cringe, and I hate Kamala Harris. You know what I mean? Like, I was like, oh, you didn't have to go there. That's the thing. He doesn't have to go there. That's not necessary. Like, that is, it's a bizarre, and again, that's just him not knowing when to shut the fuck up. And he's got to work on that if he, intends to get reelected, but that is not a necessary critique. You don't have to go there. You don't have to, I know he loves diving into the mud and hitting below the belt, but it's just ineffective. And all it does is make people, like even me, somebody who dislikes Kamala Harris intensely, felt a little bad for her in that moment. You know what I mean? Like, come on, man.
You just wince when he said that. It was so, but this is what I mean. It feels like a comic doing a club gig where he's trying out new material and seeing what works.
Yeah.
Because
he needs to do these things though in private meetings, though, not on a stage like this where he knows this is going to go viral. He can't be unaware of the fact that the public events with Donald Trump involved in them, there's always something that goes viral. There's always something he says or does that people grab onto and it goes viral. And this is going to be played for the entirety of the election. They're going to come back to this.
Yeah, but I can tell you, coming out of a theater background, you really don't know what you have until you put it in front of an audience.
Yeah.
I get it. It's always different. A lot you direct a play, things that cracked you up in rehearsals,
crickets.
Things that you didn't even think were funny, uproarious laughter. So you can't do it in a room. But look, he's probably thinking with some justification, the news cycle, the way the news cycle moves, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They'll forget about it. I'll figure out what works, what doesn't work. But that was a very ugly moment. So finally, this is the last thing that's kind of making press. He got into the January 6th thing because they asked him about whether he would pardon them.
Nobody died, but people died in Minneapolis. You know, people died in Minneapolis. And nothing happens, and nobody ever talks, and nothing happens to those people. But you went after the J6 people with a vengeance. And I'll tell you what, What about the cops that were, and I'm all for the police, as you know, but what about the police that are ushering everybody into the Capitol? Go in, go in, go in. What about that? Look, nothing is perfect in life, but you have people from Minneapolis, you have people just from 5 days ago in Washington, D.C., they were having fistfights and fighting with the police. They were spraying and destroying, they were desecrating our monuments in Washington, D.C. 5 days ago, and nothing happened to them. And you can't have two systems of justice.
Okay. With that line of argument, I think it's kind of a wash. I don't think he loses anyone. I don't think he gains anybody. The idea that we have two systems of justice in general, I don't think there are a lot of American observers who believe that a Democrat would be getting prosecuted the way Donald Trump is. I mean, the Biden family, there is quite a lot to litigate and prosecute if they were so inclined. So that basic argument, again, I think it's a wash. I think it fires up his base. I don't know if he really brings anyone new into the tent with that.
No. All of this just annoys me as an activist because it's very frustrating to me to watch, and this happens all the time. When January 6th happened, a bunch of liberals cheered it on and wanted them to all get arrested and spend decades in prison, and it was ridiculous. Right. And then when something like the environmental protesters that all got ridiculous sentences, the right cheers that on, and I'm like, y'all, do you not understand that they do this to both sides? They do this to all of us. They're using RICO stuff against J6ers and environmental protesters. I mean, it is absurd to me that people can't recognize that. Just be consistent on principle. Can we just have a little bit of that? I see that on the activism front and the protest thing, and also on free speech. It's like people want free speech until they don't. And it's so frustrating to me that people just can't be consistent on principle. I have defended a ton of people that I can't stand, that have said repugnant things that I don't agree with, but I will always defend their right to say it. And it's so frustrating to me that people can't understand how that's important, and that they don't recognize how that's important. And it's very similar here with the January 6th thing. I can't tell you the number of people I saw cheering it on, wanting them to all be arrested and thrown in prison, and how dare they, and blah, blah, blah. And then the exact same thing happens, like right now we're seeing with the Palestine protests. The right's cheering it on, send them all to prison. It's like, do you guys forget January 6th? Like, you were against it then. What is it's so frustrating.
Oh yeah, in that section, he actually did talk about the protests when Netanyahu spoke as an example of people who should be locked up. And you know who else did? Kamala. Kamala also attacked the protesters. So where do you go to vote against that?
Well, that's the thing, is that it's a bipartisan fight against dissent. It's a bipartisan fight against standing up against the, like, that's what's so frustrating, is that to me, it's blatantly obvious that that's what's happening, and that they're weaponizing it against all of us. And so when January 6ers are, people who support January 6th are cheering on Palestinian protesters being locked up, and vice versa, it's so self-defeating. I can't. It blows my mind. It's one of the most frustrating things I'm seeing right now, for sure.
All right. So let's go to some super chats. All right. Amadeus. Hitler yells about genocide. Trump brags about genocide. Kamala giggles about genocide.
Accurate.
Good one, Amadeus. Our friend from Egypt, Blasga, am I saying it right? Won't you talk about the grape protest? Yes, we are. We're going to talk about
on Rumble.
On the Rumble side, for obvious reasons.
Yeah. Thanks, YouTube.
I can see the slideshow right here. I labeled it Israeli Grapist Scum. That is what I have internally nicknamed that segment. Michael Castillo, good morning to Dissidents Courage. Rock on, my friend. Thank you. Paul Chu, when will you invite Assange on? Well, you know what? It's definitely occurred to us, because we do have connections with Stella. I figured they need some alone time and not to be bothered right now. But yes, eventually when we see they're ready to start talking and being interviewed, we'll reach out to them and we'll see if we can get them. That would be nice. Damn.
Dang, Michael.
Thank you,
That's
Michael.
generous as fuck, my guy.
Maybe I'm wrong about this whole New York is collapsing grift. Maybe I am on the right side of the grift line. I'm from, keep it coming. I'm from Grand Canyon State. I think Mark Kelly will be Kamala's VP. He called a man Pedro and a cross between a howler monkey and an orangutan. We were gonna cover this, but I feel like why cover it? She's probably gonna pick Shapiro, which again, they just don't give a shit about the left. They don't give a shit about progressives. Who are you gonna vote for, Trump? They're just gonna run the Hillary campaign all over again. I mean, obviously with a Shapiro pick, any chance they had of winning back some of the Muslims in Michigan that walked away probably goes out the window, given his comparison of protesters to KKK members. But it looks like that's what they're going to do, given that she's announcing in Pennsylvania, in Philadelphia. All right. P. Walker. Thank you, P. Walker. Maybe it shouldn't be Cackle and Kamala. Maybe it should be Ghost Switching.
Oh, this made me think of something. Somebody tweeted out, I forget who it was, I'm sorry. Oh, I wish I could remember who tweeted out, but there's an account called Kamala's Laugh, but it's all like one word. And when I read it, I read Kamala Slaw. And I was like, instead of word salad, we should start calling it Kamala Slaw. Because it's, instead,
all right.
I like it.
Maybe that'll catch on.
Yeah.
All right, Justin Watson.
Hi, Justin.
Misty co-hosting made my morning. Look at you.
Yay.
You made somebody's morning.
I love to hear it.
M. Smith. The thing is, black commentators are the ones who have been talking about Harris not being black. Sabby has been doing this since the beginning. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Like, there's a whole element to why that did not crash in the room the way the press would have you believe, because that he actually hit on something more real than anybody wants to admit.
Yes.
It's a Masarap, Morning Dew and Misty too. A good day to be on this side of the dirt. Thank you. Every day is a good day. That's what my granddad used to say. Every day is a beautiful day. When I was your age, I was so happy. I don't know why you like this. You're so cynical at 16. Noah Goop. Hey, Russell, have you ever watched Style Wars? Yeah. Classic documentary on graffiti culture in New York in the early days. Yes, I have. But yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. Fertile Green, $20. Thank you, man. Misty, so happy for Julian's freedom. Your advocacy was and is inspirational. Much appreciation and respect.
Thank you. That's very
There
good.
you go.
I'm very happy too.
There you go.
I feel like a weight has been lifted.
Yes. There was that beautiful picture of them together.
On the beach with the kids.
Yeah, very, very nice. I shared that. Nocturnal Human. Just a reminder for the audience, get your Rumble rants and super chats in before they're ending the show. Some last second ones got missed last stream. Yeah, I saw that when we had already gone to black, unfortunately. So yes, absolutely true. Nocturnal Human. Nick from RBN was just on Hard Lens. Can you get him on to talk about his event with Jill Stein? Yeah, I mean, we plan on attending that event. That came up when we had Shama on. So yeah, we'll have Nick on soon. Definitely. JM. All right. Thumbs up, baby. RB Ham. I believe the polls are way off and that any dude with both of them will not vote for word salad. Identity politics when it comes right down to it.
That's both of them.
Yeah, see, that's the thing, man. Trump is not popular either. You have to remember that. That's why when people have brought up We have Cool Blue is kind of our Steve Kornacki. He's very good with bringing up statistics and evidence from past elections. I think all that goes out the window, man. This whole election is unprecedented. You got a former president running again who can only do one term. The current president has applesauce coming out his ears, but he's still staying on as the incumbent. You got this vice president who was deeply unpopular, who didn't even make it to New Hampshire, that now they're trying to turn into Kamala Bot 2000, that they can just run and puppet and control the presidency through her as they have through Biden. All of it is so unprecedented. You got the guy with his 13 keys. Take those 13 keys and shove them up your ass, man. It doesn't. None of that applies in this election, man. None of it is precedented. There's no precedent.
It's an empire in decline. There are no rules. There are no rules anymore.
Exactly. It's Thunderdome, baby.
Yeah, this is some Mad Max shit.
All right, Keaton, we ready to move on? Keaton's trying to set the pace here, throwing up the chats. All right, we done with that? All right, so Venezuela. Okay, so we're going to take a look at this, and then I'm going to give you my take that nobody's going to like, and we'll see if Misty is going to be able to leaven it any with the audience. All right, so more protests loom in Venezuela as opposition disputes the election results. All right, so we have some video from Reuters. We'll take a look at that. We'll come back to this article.
Tally sheets at the crowds. Demonstrators packed the streets of Caracas on Tuesday, cheering for Venezuela's opposition, who said they had vote tallies to prove that President Nicolas Maduro had lost Sunday's election in a landslide, despite the country's election authority declaring his victory. Opposition candidate Edmundo Gonzalez waved what appeared to be tally sheets at the crowds, alongside opposition leader Maria Corina Machado, who was barred from running in the election but spearheaded the campaign for Gonzalez. They said Gonzalez had more than twice as many votes as Maduro in the presidential election, based on the 90% of vote tallies they've been able to access. With these numbers, we will begin the reconstruction of Venezuela hand in hand with all of you, Gonzalez told the crowd. Venezuela's electoral authority had announced on Monday that the incumbent president had secured a third term with 51% of the vote, saying he'd won the majority of valid votes. But the opposition alleges the electoral body is biased towards the dictatorial government. The US-based Carter Center, which observed the vote, said in a statement late on Tuesday, the election, quote, did not meet international standards of electoral integrity and cannot be considered democratic. It added that the electoral authority's failure to publish disaggregated results amounts to a serious breach, outlining what it said was a deeply flawed process from start to finish. Protests have erupted across the country, with voters demanding transparency in the election. At least 11 people have been killed in incidents related to the count or associated protests, according to a local human rights group. As tensions ran high, cameras have captured police hitting and kicking protesters before detaining them. Maduro's government has denounced the protests as an attempted coup. On Tuesday evening, the president ordered military and police patrols across the country. He also called Gonzalez a coward and Machado a terrorist, accusing them of fomenting violence.
Okay. So I'm trying to get this slideshow in here because I brought in the one from the other night. We have a lot going on with Venezuela right now. All right, just bear with me for 1 second.
The shenanigans have been going on for a very long time.
Yeah, why don't you your take, Misty, while I do some housekeeping.
I mean, this is completely unsurprising. The United States has been meddling in Venezuela's. I mean, listen, they have a lot of oil. I mean, let's just point that out. They have a lot of oil, and we would really like to steal their oil. So it would be very convenient for us to overthrow Maduro, install a puppet dictator, and steal their resources. That's what we do. And so, Fiorella, I will say, my dear friend Fiorella has done a fantastic job of covering elections around the world, including in Venezuela. She has a great thread going through a lot of the different technical aspects. She's done multiple videos since this has gone on. Also, Anya Parampil has done a great job. She's reported from Venezuela and things like that. So I'm just so annoyed with Americans thinking that they have any right to be talking about another country's elections when you live in the United States. Clean your own house. Like, we got enough problems. Why are you worried about Venezuela's elections? And it's very clear that
they have a lot of oil.
Exactly. Exactly. Like, Bernie Sanders is out here tweeting about Maduro's a dictator and, how dare they. Yes. I'm like, my guy, your own party openly rigged 2 back-to-back elections against you. You said nothing, but you got things to say about Venezuela. Shut the fuck up. It's so annoying. Oh,
all right.
Sorry.
So we got the right slideshow now. All right. Carter Center unable to verify Venezuela election results. The Carter Center said it was unable to verify the results of Venezuela's presidential election, blaming authorities for a complete lack of transparency in declaring Nicolas Maduro the winner without providing any individual polling tallies. The statement Tuesday night by the Atlanta-based group is perhaps the harshest rebuke yet of Venezuela's chaotic election process, because it comes from one of just a handful of outside groups invited by the Maduro government to observe the vote. Quote, the electoral authorities' failure to announce disaggregated results by polling station constitutes a serious breach of electoral principles, the Carter Center said. The group, which had a technical mission of 17 experts spread out in 4 cities across Venezuela, added that the election did not meet international standards and cannot be considered democratic. The Electoral Council has not released any results from the polling center level, which come from tally sheets that the more than 30,000 electronic voting machines print after polls close. It is not obligated to do so, but in previous elections, it has posted the figures online within hours. U.S. President Joe Biden, so to speak, and Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva spoke by phone and agreed that Venezuela must release the data, saying the election's outcome, quote, represents a critical moment for democracy in the hemisphere, according to a White House summary of the call. Venezuela has the world's largest proven crude reserves and once boasted Latin America's most advanced economy, but it entered into free fall after Maduro took the helm in 2013. Plummeting oil prices, widespread shortages, and hyperinflation that soared past 130,000% led to social unrest and mass emigration. More than 7.7 million Venezuelans have left the country since 2014, the largest exodus in Latin America's recent history. Machado said the main opposition coalition has obtained more than 84% of the tally sheets, which show Gonzalez garnered more than twice as many votes as Maduro. Quote, the only thing we are willing to negotiate is the peaceful transition, Machado said, as the crowd chanted, we have no fear. Opposition supporters elsewhere in the city were met with tear gas Tuesday. Attorney General Tarek William Saab told reporters that more than 700 protests were arrested in nationwide demonstrations Monday. He added that one officer was killed. The Organization of American States lambasted the government for not releasing the data and suggested a new election that would be monitored by international observers. Quote, the worst form of repression, the most vile, is to prevent the people from finding solutions through elections, the OAS said in a statement. The obligation of each institution in Venezuela should be to ensure freedom, justice, and transparency in the electoral process. Maduro's closest ruling party allies came to his defense. National Assembly President Jose Rodriguez, his chief negotiator in dialogues with the U.S. and the opposition, insisted Maduro was the indisputable winner and called the opposition violent fascists. Praising the arrest of the protesters, he said Machado should be jailed and so should Gonzalez, quote, because he is the leader of the fascist conspiracy that is trying to impose itself in Venezuela. Long lines of residents started to build Tuesday outside supermarkets and other stores in Caracas in apparent anticipation of a prolonged period of demonstrations that could lead to food shortages. The election was among the most peaceful in recent memory, well, until now, reflecting hopes that Venezuela could avoid bloodshed and end 25 years of single-party rule. The winner would take control of an economy recovering from collapse and a population desperate for change. Okay. So the OAS, actually, when we covered this the other day, Al Jazeera pointed out that they're a Washington-based organization. This article did not mention that, although it did, to my surprise, mention the size of Venezuela's oil reserves. So here's my not going to please anyone take. Oh, okay. I think that socialist countries and communist countries generally end up becoming authoritarian because they're really not given a choice. They're not allowed to simply have their own government and their own economy. The West puts such enormous pressure on these countries through CIA black ops, interference, economic sanctions, infiltration. The other day when we covered this story, we showed, I think the senator was that Mark Kelly who we showed? Keaton will remember. Tell me in the private chat, Keaton. Talking openly, we tried to have a coup in Venezuela. It blew up in our face. Just openly saying that. Same thing with the Russian Revolution. Very quickly, the West sent in forces to overthrow the new government. Of course, China is surrounded by Western bases. Cuba, needless to say, we weren't just like, oh yeah, take the mafia casinos. It's fine. So these societies are really not able to simply conduct themselves as open democratic societies because the West will use that openness as an opportunity to subvert the government. Between that and the sanctions we impose, I have no doubt for most of the country have created great devastation. Economically, yeah, there may be certain places in Caracas that where you can go to a supermarket that's well stocked, but people generally don't like to leave their home. You don't have that many people leaving Venezuela because these economic sanctions are not having an impact or not creating mass deprivation. So, yes, I think the election is probably rigged. I think that enough people, as a result of Western meddling across 2 decades, are suffering under that regime that in their desperation, they turned to, yes, a party we showed the other day, the leader of this party talking about how they're going to move the embassy to Jerusalem if they get elected. Yeah, you have this Western puppet government, but if your family's starving and the sanctions are going to get lifted if you put in the Western puppet government, what are you going to choose? Most people are not going to stand on principle like that. The fact that the Carter Center, which their integrity is really not questioned, and they've maintained that reputation by not doing the bidding of the State Department and how they assess elections. The fact that the Carter Center is saying that, the fact that they, more importantly, have not released these results, even though it is customary in that country I thought it was law, but according to this article, it's not, to release the precinct results. Yeah, it suggests to me that they basically said, you know what? The only reason these people won is because of Western interference, and we're not going to let them take our country and run it on behalf of the Western powers that have undermined our economy and our government fuck them. It's not a free and fair election in spirit anyway. That's my take based on the information that we have.
I guess that's certainly possible. No, there's no question about it that the United States has been doing everything that they can to destroy Venezuela so that we can take it over.
Right.
That's what, listen, y'all, this is not even up for debate. I'm sorry. If you don't think that that's happening, you are a fool and an idiot. This is what we do. This is our MO. We've done it.
They said it openly. We showed
Yes.
footage.
Yes.
I can't remember the name of the senator.
John Bolton went on national TV and bragged about organizing coups.
Also. Right.
I mean, like, it's what we do.
Right. It's not a secret. Like, we tried to install Guaido
yes,
in a coup. So yeah. So that's what I think. I think enough of the Venezuelan people decided, you know what, if they'll lift the sanctions and we can get Western aid, fuck it. I think the opposition probably won. And I think they're rigging it.
Keaton's back.
Keaton back.
In the end, do you remember the name of the senator from that clip that we showed?
I think it was Chris Murphy. Yeah.
Yeah.
How's my sound? Is my sound okay? I know my tech isn't ideal today.
I've been seeing people complain that I'm too loud. I am just loud, so it's possible that I'm just loud. But they're saying that our audio is not balanced. That Russ is quiet and I'm very loud.
They say about you, Misty. They say that you are mouthy. They say you're mouthy.
That's true too. That is true too.
I can bring your volume down a little bit if you want. Yeah, I can.
It's up to the chat, man. They're the ones bitching about it.
Am I quiet? I can turn up my mic.
I can't really tell because I'm watching in the StreamYard.
Oh yeah, my mic is down. My mic is down. That's why.
I just wanted to say real quick. I don't think it's knowable the extent to which the results were meddled with. I mean, they're saying that these systems were hacked, which is why they can't release them. May they be? May they not be? I mean, how could we possibly know that? Like, is it beyond the Americans to hack their systems? Like,
there's a paper record though. When you vote, you get listen.
Venezuela's elections are legit. Like, that's to me. I think, is it possible that they tried to rig it internally? Sure, but as Fiorella pointed out in her thread that she goes through, you have to like there's let me read through some of this stuff. Like you have to go. There's a list with voter ID numbers to confirm your table. You have to go. There's a biometric thumbprint verification machine. They double check your ID. Like Fiorella's thread is fantastic. She's been there. She's observed these elections. She's witnessed the process play out, and it's like legit. They have really secure elections.
Which is why I say the fact that they're not releasing information that they normally release. I can't remember who said it. It's a famous quote. You don't have to control the voting. You have to control the people who are doing the counting. Yeah. And the people who certify the election are part of the ruling party. The fact that they didn't just, hey, you're getting these accusations of, okay, so if everything's legit, the first thing you'd want to do is release the precinct tallies that you normally release. Why would you not do that? That's why I'm saying, yeah, I think probably the opposition did win. But that is the result of decades of Western interference in that country to create conditions that would turn people against the government.
Well, that's why you do sanctions. You do sanctions to create civil unrest. You do sanctions to create a rebellion against
so people turn against their government. Yeah.
And this is why serious socialists and leftists and communists say that it has to be global, that the workers' struggle is global, because whoever voted for this psycho-Zionist stooge thinking they're going to get a better deal at the end of the day because we're going to lift the sanctions. Let's say they get their Western puppet in there and we lift the sanctions. You think that's going to be to the benefit of the Venezuelan people? Yeah, they're going to lift the sanctions. And then you know what's going to happen? It's going to turn into Batista's Cuba. You're going to be a plantation for the United States. You're going to plunge into illiteracy and poverty. That's what Cuba was pre-revolution. That's what Venezuela will be post-Western capitalist coup. So whoever thought
except for a privileged class,
we're going to take the boot off your neck, and now you're going to be free to do what? Free to work for our oil companies for $3 a day. That's what your freedom is going to look like. So enjoy it if that's what you voted for.
Yeah.
Right. Except for a privileged upper class.
This is why the challenge is, well, yes, and this is why the challenge is to organize workers worldwide, because the only way to combat this is for workers to band together. And this is why these governments are so protective of their power. Like you said, it creates the conditions for authoritarianism because you have to cling to power. What, China's going to let Google run their internet?
Right.
Of course they're going to censor the internet.
Right.
They're surrounded by military bases, right? So Venezuela, same thing. That's why, like, I almost think, okay, whether the vote was manipulated is far downstream of the more important argument, which is why are they in a situation where this would be a question? Because they're not allowed to run their state because they have oil under them.
Agreed.
Yep.
And 100% agreed.
If Venezuelans win their freedom by putting in this fucking bitch, whoever she is, I don't even know her name. If they win their freedom, they're going to be free
Trumpy
to work as illiterate wage slaves for Western corporations. That's what their freedom is going to look like.
Yeah. I've been saying for years that we need global solidarity against empire. That is just the reality of it. It's going to take all of us. And I mean, listen, there's a famous Assange quote where he says, there is unity in the oppression. There must be absolute unity and determination in the response. And that's the reality of it. And that's, you know, people get very angry with me. I got in big trouble today because I put out a tweet supporting the Libertarian Institute and suddenly I'm a Nazi. No, y'all, if you want to hang out in your little safe space and feel smugly superior, you do you. I would like to get some shit done. And that requires coming together with people that I don't agree with on everything, on issues that matter to me. And I don't know why that's controversial, but apparently it still is. But that's going to be that's going to be our downfall, is the idea that we want to hang out in our little pockets, you know, our little safe spaces where everybody agrees with us. We don't have to have difficult conversations. That's not how you get shit done. We're up against it, and it's going to take a mass collaboration across the globe to deal with this. But yeah, I agree with you. The results of the election, whether or not it was rigged or not, to me, it's kind of irrelevant. And I think the bigger issue here is, why is Venezuela in this position to begin with? And why do people in the United States think that they have any say over what's happening in Venezuela at all to begin with? Like,
and
just
that's why
mind
the
your business.
Like the People's Forum put out a tweet. I don't know if they're doing any demonstrations. That's why the demand is generally, when the United States sticks its nose into these countries, the demand is generally hands off X, right? Hands off Venezuela, because that's the most important demand. That's just it. Hands off. Leave them the fuck alone.
Yes.
If you leave them the fuck alone to run their country the way they want, a lot of this corruption will disappear because they won't be under siege anymore. Number one. And number two, it is not to the benefit of the Venezuelan people to make them essentially slaves for Western corporations, which is what the Cuban people were pre-Castro. Now, you want to criticize Castro? Go ahead, criticize Castro. Compare Castro's Cuba to what the reality of day-to-day life was for Cuban people pre-Castro. No health care, very low literacy rates, extreme poverty. Like, if you really believe that your way of life is so superior that by way of virtue people will flourish, then let countries self-determine. But they won't. They won't. And that's why the demand is hands off. Hands off. It is not our business to intervene in their internal affairs, be it their electoral process or anything else, is to basically impose our will on their people, not to the benefit of their people, to the benefit of us and to the benefit of the upper class of the Venezuelan people, and the no doubt corrupt oligarchs who will then be the democratically elected political leaders who preside over freedom and prosperity and opportunity, right?
Yeah. And there's this isn't discussed very often. I got into it a little bit when we covered it the other night. There's an element of colorism, very much like Haiti, in Venezuelan society. And those lighter skinned, more Spain descended Venezuelans were in charge until Chavez took over, who represented the greater mass of Venezuelan society, the darker, more native descended Venezuelans. So that is an element of the opposition. These are lighter skinned, more upper class Venezuelans who ran the country until Chavez trying to use Western interference to return to power.
All right, I'm in backstage again. What do you got? 2 more segments and then the Rumble switch. Right?
Keaton, since you're here, there was a little bit of that Trump segment I didn't get to. You want to just stick around for like a few minutes because you're good on this and you can clip it together later.
Okay, if you want.
Because I know you love to go off on this kind of thing. All right, so this is what Trump threw up at his rally. Very, very Trumpian. Rather than to back down, double down. Always double down. The Trump campaign projected this on the screen above his rally at Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And if you look closely, it's a Business Insider article saying California's Kamala Harris becomes first Indian American U.S. Senator. And then Karine Jean-Pierre had a reaction to this.
She was only promoting Indian heritage. I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, he said, and now she wants to be known as black. So I didn't know, is she Indian or is she black? Wow. She has always, this is unclear. I respect either one, but she obviously doesn't because she was Indian all the way and then all of a sudden she made a turn and she went black. Your response to those comments?
He is a candidate, so I'm going to be super careful. Wait, no, hold on, hold on. I have more to say. I certainly have more to say. As a person of color, as a black woman who is in this position that is standing before you at this podium behind this lectern, what he just said, what you just read out to me, is repulsive, it's insulting, and, you know, no one has any right to tell someone who they are, how they identify. That is no one's right. It is someone's own decisions. It is, I'll add this. Only she can speak to her experience. Only she can speak to what it's like. She's the only person that can do that. And I think it's insulting for anybody. It doesn't matter if it's a former leader, a former president. It is insulting. And we have to put, she is the Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris. We have to put some respect on her name, period.
No, we don't.
No, but that's why in a lot of ways she's their ideal. They can always throw that out there, but I mean, Trump teed it up for them perfectly to go there. I mean, of course, he went there first.
Yeah, the more they say that, the better it plays for Kamala. And it's not because of the merits of what she's saying. I don't really believe, like, I'm not one of these people who likes to gatekeep what certain people are allowed to say because they're a certain color. Oh, if you're white, you can't talk about black issues. If you're black, you can't talk about Latino issues. I mean, who gives a fuck, right? But that's the thing. Who gives a fuck? The Democrats, when they put that out there, because the merits of what they're saying are so shaky, you're just baiting the Republicans to hit you back. And the more the Republicans hit you back on that, the more this becomes a litigation of this woman of color's heritage. And I'm telling you right now, whatever the merits of the argument, that is not an argument you want to have if you're the Republicans. You are winning on immigration. You're winning on inflation. Those are the two most important issues on voters' minds. If you're the Republican Party, you want the election to be a referendum on those two issues. I guarantee you, Kamala campaign headquarters, DNC headquarters, if they had to pick out of a list of issues what we're going to talk about, Kamala's heritage is top of the list. They are thrilled that the Republicans are hitting her on this. Absolutely thrilled. It is they. So whether this was 4D chess and
how do we get him to say octoroon?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, whether this was 4D chess, whether this was premeditated on the Democrats' part, it's working. The way it's playing out as though the Democrats laid a trap, and the conservatives, because they're such fucking assholes, can't help but walk right into it. That's what they're going to do. They're going to asshole their way out of this. That like they were handed this election on a silver platter, and because they just cannot help trolling a black woman, they could blow it. They could blow it. I'm telling you right now. And I saw some people in the chat earlier say the fact that you're triggered means it was a good idea. No. The world is not YouTube.
Yeah, Keaton is triggered. Yeah.
The world. Well, first of all, I'm not triggered, but the world is not a YouTube chat. The world is not a Twitter thread. Triggering libs plays great on the internet. The goal of a candidate is not to trigger the country. That is not the path to victory. Oh, you're triggered. That means I win. No, that's not. There are 330 million people in this country. They go and vote.
The liberal tears mug doesn't win you the election.
The liberal tears mug, you go. I mean, drive around. I mean, Misty, you're from the Rust Belt. You're from the Rust Belt. Do people around there enjoy being triggered, or do they just look at this and say, "What a sideshow! What a freak show"?
Yes. Yeah, that's exactly
how
it.
People respond to this as a bunch of nonsense. And when they had buyer's remorse over Biden because they say, hey, the border was secure under Trump, groceries were cheap under Trump, gas was cheap under Trump, whatever the merits of that, we can litigate that anytime we want. That's what they were thinking. When they thought Trump during the Biden years, they thought cheap gas, cheap groceries, secure border.
Yep.
Now, when they think Trump, they're being reminded of why they don't like him. They're being reminded, this is why we never liked him, because he's a fucking asshole. And if you hammer this repeatedly for the next 3 months, you are in danger of losing. You are in grave danger of losing.
I don't know why is he not hitting them on democracy? Zero votes. I don't know why he's focusing on her race when he could be. He's supposedly this existential threat to democracy, and she has been literally just anointed. And why are they not talking about that more? It blows my mind that they're missing that. It blows my mind.
They were on that for a little bit.
They need to be hammering that all day, every day.
No, absolutely. You're 100% right. And they were hammering it a little bit, but
it
only takes a few days of a black woman being on the ticket for the chuds to just, they cannot resist the impulse to troll in that way.
Fair.
And and I think it could very well cost them. I really do.
I am honestly shocked that Trump has not said the words Willie Brown yet. I'm shocked.
Right?
Well, that's a level of discipline that he is able to somehow exercise, at least thus far, because that would be another major mistake. Yeah.
I think that's coming.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Vice.
All right. We'll see you guys. So what is it? I'm going to run the Rumble switch. Are you doing 2 more segments, kind of shorter ones, I think, and then the Rumble switch?
Yeah, we're doing the Scott Galloway, and we are doing
the Kamala staff.
The Kamala staff. Yeah, so after Galloway, we'll run the patron scroll, I guess.
Yeah, all right. Sounds good.
Okay, so let's throw up some more super chats. Where are we? Okay. Baby Ethernet, Kamala, a biracial woman, never identified as black. Okay, whether she did or did, it's interesting. I was thinking about this because I just read Caleb Maupin's book, and he spent some time talking about how she grew up in the New Left in San Francisco, and he talks about how her family took her to a black but kind of like an upper class community center. So she did belong to a black sorority. Look, in keeping with Kamala's career, it seems like she identified with what she wanted to identify with.
Whatever's politically advantageous. She's an opportunist. Period.
Yeah, what Trump said that she just started. No, that's not true. Like, she's been invoking that side of her heritage when it's convenient for a long time, and not when it's not. Like, that's where there's this element in it that got a mixed reaction from that room. New Pat 2112. Y'all are wildin'. Why do you guys want him to run a McCain 08, Romney 12, where he's scared to go on the offensive?
I don't go on the offensive without, falling into the trap.
Hey man, when he was getting into they're flooding across the border and that caused black jabs. That's going on the offensive.
Yeah, and also sorry to butt in last time. I'm not rooting for him to do anything. I'm not invested in
exactly.
I'm not rooting for him to win.
I don't give a shit about electoral politics.
If these fucking idiots blow this election, it'll be the funniest thing in modern political history. For them to lose this election, you were handed, if you're a Republican, you were handed this election on a silver fucking platter. If you blow it because you can't resist the temptation to troll when a black woman gets a top ticket. That would be the funniest shit ever. And I don't care whether or not that happens. I'm going to laugh my ass off either way on election night, no matter who wins.
Very good.
It doesn't matter to me.
It's good for us. It's fodder for years of material. All right.
Either way, it doesn't matter.
Kevin Dorr, Jimmy Dore's right-wing cousin. Could you please tell me, other than Trump? I'm kidding. I don't think you're right-wing. I don't know you. Kevin Dorr, could you please tell me, other than Trump on the GOP side is charismatic, who would be a good running mate? I think Vivek would have made a good running mate. I
Tulsi
think
right now.
Tulsi would have been the best pick
that
he could have made, in my opinion. And I would have said that before the Kamala thing. I always thought Tulsi would have been a good move for him. Yeah, I mean, those are the ones that spring to mind. Tim Scott wouldn't have been a bad move, given that Trump likes to outshine the person next to him. Tim Scott's not that charismatic. But he can make the case that conservatism is not inherently a white supremacist ideology. So any of those, I think, would have been a better pick for him than JD Vance. Kevin Dorr again. The only reason there's a replace JD thing going around is because the Fox News inside GOP media types are against him, such as he doesn't hate El Khan. Who's El Khan? Who is that? Do you have a handle on that, Misty? El Khan? You're talking about the Star Trek
I don't think
character?
it's just the Fox News people. Most people were very confused by JD Vance being the choice.
Yeah.
It's a confusing choice.
Yeah,
it's a very strange choice.
Just like we were talking about the Olympics the other night, and I was of two minds about that opening ceremony. On the one hand, I felt a lot of it was inappropriate contextually, given that the Olympics is for everybody, and that was clearly not with everybody in mind. I also, from an artistic perspective, respected a lot of what they did, because I thought it was very solid in its execution and conception. If you put it in a theater for people who wanted to see that, I'd say it was pretty good. Same thing with politics. I'm not going to say that JD Vance is not good on the stump and he's not a natural politician because I don't like him ideologically. I'll always give it up on that level. He's just not good. He's not good. Believe me,
I hate
not
Barack
good.
Obama. He's a really good politician.
Right.
He is a very good politician. I hate the guy, but
so
that's just reality.
I don't think all the pushback he's getting is because of whatever inside Fox News shit. He's not good. He's not good. You don't want a guy when you're trying to allay people's fears about abortion, when you've had 2 elections now where they anticipated a red wave that never happened because of Dobbs. You do not want to grab a guy who voted to restrict IVF. That was not a good pick, his political skills aside. Now you got a guy with that record who doesn't have good political skills, where he can kind of obfuscate that. And yeah, it was a bad pick. Okay. New Pat. Black people don't care like you think they do. Trump loses no support and goes up with black men. WWC. What? I don't know what that is too. You know what? When me and Keaton talked about this offline, I told him that. I said that line, if it works with anybody, would work with black men.
Black men. There's a huge divide right now, at least from what I'm observing, between black men and black women. And the amount of gaslighting that black people are going to be subjected to this election is going to be intense. I mean, especially black women.
Well, it already
That's
is.
going to be intense. Yeah, that's insane. But I can see that divide already happening.
Zoe, thank you for the $1.99. To combat Mamala, we should call her Bambala.
I like it.
Very, very nice. Quintessential, $25 or Hong Kong dollars. Well, we'll take it. Thank you. Most Americans too earnest to mock people, or else jokes on Kamala to have no political effect. Is Family Guy less popular than I think? Well, man, when you're this old, rich, white dude, you got to pick your battles and pick the things
you
that
can mock her. There's a
Yes.
line though. Like he's just not very good about knowing
Right. Where that line is.
Yes.
But hey, man, I keep referencing the John McCain thing. Everyone thought that was the end of his political career. Very often Trump's moments like that play better than the punditocracy think they do, because there is an audience for it that they don't want to acknowledge. So I keep going back to the reaction in that room and how mixed it actually was.
Yeah.
It was not, you could see the difference when he went into cognitive, which Trump, if I'm reading it right, he's trying different things out. I bet you never hear him say that again.
Yeah.
But what did he do that night? He doubled down on that because he was like, some people in the room like that. I'm going to double down on it. But he didn't double down on the mental cognition, and I don't think he ever will.
Yeah.
Who's Netsky Bassane? Super sticker. Thank you, man. Bloodthirsty mayonnaise. Bloodthirsty failed the bar the first 2 times. Are you a lawyer? Are you a lawyer, Bloodthirsty mayonnaise? We might need one.
A lot of people fail the bar.
Yeah.
It's hard.
A lot of people fail 3 times even before they pass.
That shit's hard.
Maxwell Pfeffer. Communists aren't anarchists. A country needs an authority. The authority is the dictatorship of the proletariat, the working class, not corporations. Yeah. Hey, listen, I plan on going to China next year, and I'm sure that's going to be really interesting to see how a country that is inspired by the Marxist-Leninist rather than the Adam Smith tradition actually functions on the ground when you're there. So I will have a lot to say about that afterwards, I'm sure. Mark P. Thicot, USA coups, USA for fuck's sake. So it's a feature.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's what we do.
Yep. Agreed. Christian Fortin, Senegal simp for Misty. What a person of colored lips.
I identify as a colored lip person. How about that?
Philip Blair, do we have to respect VP Dick Cheney now?
No, you have to respect 0 people. That is not, you're not mandated to respect anybody. That is, I hate when we better put some respect. No, I don't have to put respect on her name. She sucks.
Right. Well, that's what I call the peasant mentality.
Yeah.
That's the peasant mentality. Oh, yes, my lord. Yes, I'm sorry. I mispronounced your name.
Yeah,
Fuck
you can miss me with that. That's not my style. Sorry.
All right, so let's do some Rumble rants here. Let's see what we got down there on the Rumble rants. Just been clearing these. No. All right, thank you, sir. Vote Kamala. Michael Moore says so. He's always been a lackey for the Democratic Party. His last podcast is cringe. Yeah,
I wouldn't listen to that if you paid me money.
Yeah, that's taking one for the team. Adore Jimmy. Thank you, Misty, for your activism for Assange.
You're welcome, I guess.
Yeah. Bonzo Beans. Time for another trans story. Women's boxing. Hashtag I stand with Angela Carini. Forza Italia. You know what? I almost put that on the docket today.
I wish you would have, because
I almost did it. But I didn't. All right. So wait to torture Keaton with that on Sunday. His Highness. Sorry if this has already been covered. I came in late. But Misty, why do you think we haven't heard anything from Assange since he was released?
I mean, he's been subjected to psychological torture for over a decade, been held in Belmarsh for over 5 years, is just now getting to spend actual time with his family and friends. I think he probably needs some rest. And that's not to say that I am not anxious to hear from him and that I don't wish that he would just make a 3-minute video. Hey, thanks for everything. I'm spending time with my family. We haven't heard from him directly since 2018 when his internet was cut off. So certainly I am anxious to be able to actually hear from him directly. Don't get me wrong. But I am also trying to be patient and be understanding of his circumstances, the situation that he's been in, the stuff that he's been subjected to. And so I have been kind of pushing, hey, it'd be nice to hear from Julian. Hey, trying to, see where we're at there. Cause that's just how I am. I'm not very patient. But also I understand that he has been through a lot and certainly probably needs some time he's been in a supermax prison for over 5 years. The readjustment period, I'm sure he's unbelievably overwhelmed. I mean, the fact that he's autistic and the sensory stuff that he must be dealing with and all of that.
Is
I'm sure
he
he's overwhelmed.
Is he autistic? I never knew that.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I'd say the man has earned some family time and alone time. I'm sure the last thing he wants is to get in front of a camera right now. Give him some space.
For sure.
Yeah.
He doesn't owe us anything. He doesn't owe us anything.
Absolutely. All right. We moving on, Keaton? All right. I'll take that as a yes. Okay. So we covered the white dudes for Kamala cringe fest the other night. I was going to do this that night, but we didn't get to it because the show was running like 18 hours at that point. Scott Galloway, who is a professor at NYU Stern, he probably gave the most infuriating speech of the entire night. So much so that it's worth doing a segment on, because you just have to ask when he talks about the economy, when he talks about jobs, when he talks about Ukraine, when he talks about Israel, how's the weather that far up your own ass, Scott? And what's really surprising about what he says about the economy is, he's this Zionist pro State Department maniac. But he just wrote a book and he's been going around doing lectures arguing that Gen Z has a right to be angry because the boomers really hoarded all the money and they're gatekeeping opportunity for the next generation. So somebody whose whole shtick is saying, hey, they have a point and things aren't that great. It's amazing what he says here, which just completely contradicts everything he's been saying in that regard on behalf of promoting Kamala.
Scott Galloway, I teach at NYU. I consider myself a man, and I think my job is to provide and protect, and the way that manifests in this age is to ensure that Vice President Harris is in the White House. I'll touch on three things. First is the economy. I don't think the Democrats have done a great job messaging around the economy. Here's the data. Since 2020, real GDP growth across the G7 has averaged 3.5%. Germany and the UK laggards less than 2%. Real GDP growth since 2020 in the United States has been 8.5%. It has been double what the average GDP growth across the G7 would say. Well, the economy is running hot. That must mean there's terrible inflation. Our inflation is the lowest across the G7. So let me get this. The Goldilocks chocolate and peanut butter combination of the strongest growth with the lowest inflation. What is the result of that? 15.4 million new jobs created in 3.5 years, more jobs than have been created in any 8-year tenure of any presidency. Fun fact, China has shed $6 trillion in market capitalization in the last 5 years. The S&P in the United States has doubled. There are 195 nations, 194 of them all wish they were the United States. The Biden-Harris administration has put on a master class and how to pull off the strongest economy in the world. The best investment in modern history is the investment the Biden-Harris administration have made in Ukraine.
Okay, so we'll pause. I know. That's why it deserved its own segment apart from the white dudes for Harris cringe fest. Okay, this motherfucker. Okay. All right. Well, especially what's infuriating is he's not like these talking head journalists who are just kind of reading what they've been handed. He's an economist. He knows better than this. He, especially given the focus of his lectures regarding the way the economy has been rigged to favor a boomer cohort that's hoarded all this wealth and opportunity. He knows better than this. He knows that GDP growth that only goes into the stock market, that only goes to the investor class, that only goes to the upper 1% means fucking nothing. Nothing for the vast majority of the public. That GDP growth is all being funneled to the upper 1%. The upper 1%, this statistic just dropped. The upper 1% now has more wealth than the entire middle class. Forget about the lower class. The entire middle class, the upper 1%, has more wealth than. You're going to start talking about GDP growth because he knows better. He knows that doesn't mean anything. He knows it's about how that growth is distributed throughout the population. Inflation is lower than it is in these other G7 countries. That doesn't mean it's good. And these other G7 countries, guess what they have? Healthcare. They have free college. Inflation is not going to mean you can't go to a doctor in those countries. It's not going to mean you can't go to school. It does here. Misty, anything?
The idea that he just said that one of the best investments was the war in Ukraine.
Oh, he continues with that.
Okay, then I'll just wait because I have so many things to say.
Oh yeah, no.
The level of scumbaggery it takes to say some shit like that is off the charts.
That and Israel, your head's going to explode.
Oh.
Yeah, no. This segment was unfucking believable.
All right. Here we go.
For $60 billion a year, approximately 10% of our military budget, we have taken out a third of Russia's kinetic power. We have defanged the ridiculous notion that this was a ferocious army, and we have given Xi real pause not to invade Taiwan. And most of that money has come back to red states, to manufacturers and weapons suppliers. This is the greatest investment in the history of the modern economy. As a Jew, a proud Jew, I was rattled by the events of October 7th. Quite frankly, I was very disappointed in some of the rhetoric coming out of the far left of my own party. I haven't become a one-issue voter, but I'm very concerned about Israel. And here's the bottom line on Biden-Harris as it relates to Israel. No one has been a more steadfast ally of Israel than Biden-Harris. Within days of October 7th, the Hamas was hoping to inspire a multi-front war. The Biden-Harris administration immediately deployed 2 carrier strike forces and told Iran and its proxies to sit the fuck down. Nobody has been stronger on Israel than Biden and Harris. And all this tough macho talk about the notion that finish the job. Well, guess what? In addition to winning this war, which we will, we need an enduring, lasting peace. And who do you trust to figure out the nuance and the diplomacy of a lasting peace in the Middle East? Secretary Blinken, Secretary Austin, and President Harris. This is how we Zionists get an enduring peace in the Middle East. Finally, I raised 2 boys.
Okay.
The Zionist talking about peace. Go fuck yourself. Seriously, go fuck yourself. That is so ridiculous. But the Ukraine thing, yeah, it's the best investment. He reminds me of Lindsey Graham. Remember when Lindsey Graham was like,
oh, yeah.
Listen, the return on investment here is great. No American lives have been lost. You sound like an absolute neocon scumbag. That's what you sound like. I mean, just unbelievable. And it's done nothing. They've got nothing. You've completely wiped out an entire generation of Ukrainian men. Now it's a bunch of old dudes out there fighting the war, and even some women. And for what? What have you done? You have done nothing. Russia doesn't give a fuck about you. Their economy's doing great. They're doing fine. Like, have you, damaged them slightly militarily, economically? I'm sure, probably. They're not bothered by this at all. You've completely destroyed Ukraine for nothing. And he's out here calling it the best investment. Seriously, there's not enough go fuck yourselves for this guy. What a scumbag.
Well, that gives you an idea of how these people think about Ukraine.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
They don't care.
You're cannon fodder. That's it.
Even if you think that it's a just war, which is really not the argument he's making. He's making an argument of return on investment. It's a good investment. But even if you thought it was a just war, maybe spare a word for the devastation of the Ukrainian people, of their country, of as you say, an entire generation of Ukrainian men that's been wiped out. I mean, to just talk about it like, yeah, no, look at the interest rate.
Right.
And then he hits on, I mean, this is what's funny about scumbags like this, because they only talk to other ruling class scumbags who never really pause to think about how horrific the way that they see the world is and how heedless it is of consequences for people not of their class. Chris Hedges in America, the Farewell Tour, spent some time talking about how one of the reasons we keep ginning up these wars is because the last real manufacturing jobs left in the country is arms manufacturing. And he just openly says that. He says that's going to bring manufacturing jobs to the red states. So a benefit of this is, well, we keep our manufacturing going and we keep those jobs there by wiping out Ukraine. It's a great investment. It's a great return on investment. On the Israel front, well, I hate to tell you this, Scott. I don't know if you've been reading the headlines. Iran's not sitting the fuck down. And even before this, okay, there have been developments since he said this, although it's only a couple of days ago. A lot of this was already in motion. You do remember Iran sending hundreds of rockets at Israel about a month ago, right? So no, they have not been sitting down. But even if you favor this kind of foreign policy, it's really not an argument for them. What? Trump is going to be less vile in this area than you would like? No, he's going to make you Zionist scumbags very happy with what he would do if he were in power. There is no real choice. Now what else is very interesting in regards to what we were saying before about who's running the country? You notice he mentions Blinken and Austin as the people to trust to make the peace before he says President Harris. So he knows what's up. He knows who's actually running this country. He knows she's a figurehead. I feel like that was a Freudian slip that he listed them before the candidate that he's supposedly speaking on behalf of.
And imagine saying Lloyd Austin and Antony Blinken and then like peace. That makes zero sense, my guy.
Well, and sure, that's who we trust to negotiate a peace, given how well they've been doing with cultivating peace over the last 4 years. Doesn't the world look peaceful to you?
Totally. Yes. Look at all the peace, guys. It's amazing.
Look at pieces breaking out everywhere.
Yeah. There's no like threat of nuclear annihilation currently. We aren't currently at war with multiple different countries engaged in a couple different genocides, illegally occupying who knows how many countries. None of that's going on, guys. It's very peaceful. Things are great.
Yeah. We're not on the verge of World War III like any freaking day.
Everything's fine.
I haven't booked any travel for next year because I'm like, you better do it at the last minute because I wouldn't assume that travel is on the menu next year.
Yeah.
We're
laughing, but it's getting real.
Serious. I would have already. I told you, I plan on going to China. I usually book these things way in advance. I'm like, you want to go in April, man? Wait until January. Wait till January.
And make sure you insure your trip so you can get a refund if necessary.
Exactly. All right. So the end of this is just kind of cringe. Where
this has all been cringe, my guy.
Yeah. More cringe. Even more cringe because he invites the king of cringe, Mr. Mark Hamill, to come back on the stream. So let's see.
I'm raising two men. Whether we want it or not, the president is the premier role model for young men and women around the world. I am entirely certain entirely certain a President Harris would never mock the disabled. I'm even more certain that a President Harris would not have sex with a porn star and then try and cover it up illegally with campaign funds. I'm entirely sure.
Okay, listen, man. Trump shouldn't go here, but I'm not Trump. You really want to get into sexual history when the candidate is Kamala Harris, who was what, 64-year-old Willie Brown's mistress at the time that she was with him? He was like 64. He was still married.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I think it's wrong to point to a woman and say she slept her way to the top, but you know, in this case, it does have the virtue of being true. So I don't know how much you want to invoke someone's sexual past when you're running against Kamala Harris.
Well, and that's the thing. Nico brought it up on Twitter. He's like, you know, if we're going to talk about Trump paying off this porn star, are we not going to talk about Kamala Harris and her affair with Willie Brown? And I don't give a shit about either one of them. I don't care. The only thing I think bears any conversation, if at all, is the fact that Kamala Harris used that affair for personal and professional advancement.
Exactly.
And that's a problem.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, you know, based on Caleb Maupin's writings, I'd say, you know, in the past, I always said, oh yeah, 25-year-old Kamala Harris was attracted to this old man. That wasn't to get ahead.
Yeah.
But now I'm saying she has some serious daddy issues. So maybe it was both. Maybe it was a combination of both. Okay, to continue. Oh, and also, I want, you know, he starts off, "I'm a man, we protect and provide," and he hits that again at the end. Yeah.
Well, he also said, "I consider myself a man," which is a weird statement. But then he goes on to say, "I'm raising 2 boys. I'm raising 2 men." Well, how dare you assume their gender, sir? How do you know?
Yeah. Well, he's hit it. Well, no, I think he's more on the intellectual dark web side of that stuff. So this language, this is all very IDW. It's very Jordan Peterson.
Yeah.
You know, men provide and protect, and they're trying to emasculate men. And I got to say, I don't disagree with that in and of itself. Although, you know, Jordan Peterson is in what I call his Harvey Dent, Harvey Two-Face era with the two-tone suits, and I expect him to be cast as a Batman villain anytime. One thing he said that I always bring up, because there is a lot of truth to it. If you are afraid of strong men, wait until you see what weak men are capable of. A lot of see, these people, they're trying to war against the very idea of what they call biological essentialism. The idea that there are certain traits that are genetically programmed that are biologically based. Now, you ask these same people, because liberals always consider themselves, you know, science-based. You know, we're the rational ones, right? We're not like those ignorant Scopes monkey trial people. Do you believe in evolution? Yes. Okay, so do you think that millions of years of evolution did not create differences between men and women? Like, really? You uniquely among primate species, we're the only ones where there's no difference built in with men and women? Why, when you go to uncontacted tribes, the girls are playing language cooperation based games like patty cake, and the men are playing hunting metaphor games like football? Why is that? Tribes that have had no contact with outside cultures. Why is that? Which of course they have no answer to. So what Peterson is invoking there, that I agree with, is a lot of what we think of as the kind of chivalrous codes, right? Which today they'll call patriarchal and toxic masculinity. Okay, those codes were an effort to sublimate male aggression into socially productive, acceptable forms. And when you remove that from men, you take away their honor code, you're not going to like the result. You're not going to like the result of taking away the idea that men are supposed to be protectors and providers. Because if you take that away, what do you have left? You have people that evolution has designed to be aggressive without any code of ethics to channel that aggression into. So that is what he's invoking here, which I don't disagree with on its face, but he's using it to invoke ideas and connecting them to ideas that are completely destructive and insane. And this is what the intellectual dark web people do in general. They connect these resentments, some of which are valid, about the liberal social engineering project, and they connect them to these deep state international political projects that are insane. I went to the Dissident Dialogues a few months ago, and I got more insight into these people than I ever really wanted. To a person, they are fanatically Zionist. They are all for the Ukraine war, and they'll pair that with invoking these culture war transgenderism and to try to take men who might be uncomfortable with things like that and get them on board with a State Department agenda, which is really disgusting. All right. So let's see Mark Hamill's little cameo here.
That a President Harris will have one marriage and be a wonderful mother for all of those like me out there whose stepmother played a wonderful role in their lives. She is a wonderful mother. I invite all of you like me who have spent the majority of their life talking the talk but not walking the walk to decide if this is a principle, not just an opinion. And the difference between the two is to sacrifice. So I want to do that right now. There's different ways to contribute your time, your treasure, and your talent. I'm going to match that $50,000, or I'm going to put up a $50,000 match, but I'm a selfish person. I need something in return. One of my heroes is on this call, and I'm asking this hero to turn on his mic and say the following in exchange for $50,000, and that is the following. I'm Luke Skywalker. I'm here to rescue you. I'm waiting, Mark. I'm waiting.
Can someone unmute Mark?
What a dork.
Can we unmute him?
There we go. I'm Luke Skywalker, and I'm here to rescue you, Mr. Galloway. You've got
Thanks
it.
very much. I'll finish where I ended. My name is Scott Galloway. I teach at NYU. I am a man. We protect and we provide. That is what we do.
Yeah, as cringe as promised. Yeah, just This is Mark Hamill's a great example. If you don't die a hero, you live long enough to be the villain.
Yeah. He's such a dork. It's that whole thing, the whole white dudes for Kamala it's so corny and forced and awkward. And I mean, it's just, I mean, as somebody who doesn't give a shit about electoral politics at all, I don't care. All of this is fantastic entertainment for me. This is like the most entertaining election cycle in a very long time. And I mean, I'll take it for what it's worth. But I mean, all of this stuff is so fucking ridiculous.
Yes. It is definitely late empire collapse kind of stuff where you got someone like this running around talking about what a man is, while at the same time praising a war that has wiped out a country's entire generation of young men. It's too bad those guys will not get a chance to find out what being a man is, because they're all dead because of people like you. Thanks, Scott. All right, let's take some super chats. King Lalabella. Elon Musk is channeling his inner Afrikaners. Oh, Keaton, if you're back there, you want to do the patron scroll before I do the Kamala VP? New Pat 2112. Could you guys chill with projecting your sensibilities onto everyone? The world doesn't care, Keaton. Well, projecting our sensibilities onto everyone is kind of the gig. It's kind of the gig.
I mean, you do know how this works, right? Like that's kind
Yes.
of the point.
Yes.
You're free to change turn something else
yes,
on.
that you do have an off
But thanks for the
button.
super chats.
We'll
Good
take
job.
the money. We'll take the money. New Pat 2112. He focuses on that exact thing at his rallies. Which thing? I went to one of his rallies, and the most memorable thing was his observation about how you make ice for the Wallman rink, how he had to go to Canada. Because in Canada, they know how to make ice. So I said, I'm going to call Canada. That was very memorable. Okay. Temporal Police, 199. Thank you. Blanco Socal for $5. Don't fall for the color talking point trap. She's a cop. Her policies are a right winger's wet dream. Stay on focus. I agree. That's why Tulsi would have been a much better pick, because she could have litigated that in a way that they can't. Because they like that shit. Mark P. Thicot for, I always forget what currency that is, man. But thank you for it. It's funny that so many in the West see themselves as highly cultured and superior when the main goals for the neoliberal rulers they voted for are low education rates and enormous wealth gaps. You're absolutely right. That's something else that Caleb Maupin really got into in his book that I found really fascinating and informative. He talks about how the left, this is not really a new development, has always had this division between this intellectual upper class left that sees leftism as releasing restraints on their own lifestyle options, and that class as having a disdain for populism, as having a disdain for the popular will, as being deeply suspicious of democratic institutions as they apply to the masses. Democracy is really for them. It's for them. And this is, you can see it. That's what the Democratic Party is today. That's why they're so obsessed with an ever expanding panoply of sexual lifestyle options and not very much else, because that's their idea of what a left is.
Yep.
Okay. Where are we? Okay. Problematic post. I like that. Insertet opinion. All right. Shinabilly. You think shit libs are insufferable now? Wait until Kamala wins. Also, Vance was picked because of Thiel, in my opinion. A lot of people are saying that. All right. Our personal Steve Kornacki here. Cool Blue 71. Rethinking election 2024. On January 20th, 2025, Kamala Harris becomes the 45th U.S. president. That the people are over not only Biden, but also Trump. You may be right, man. You may be right. People forget this, but Trump is not popular. He's very popular with certain people. Yeah. He did not win in 2016. Hillary Clinton lost because she was terrible. She was absolutely terrible. WWC New Pat 2112, white working class, of course. I was like, hang on, big beautiful woman, no. All right. White working class. There we are. David Martin, we are 20 seconds to midnight.
On the clock,
on the nuclear clock,
doomsday clock, yeah.
That's why you gotta enjoy every day, like my grandpa said. Dell 0373 499. Trump is dictating the conversation. He knew that room was against him. He doesn't need the whole room, just some of them. And that's what I've kind of been intimating, that shit plays with more people than you would get from listening to Jean-Pierre there. DC, I believe Assange was MK Ultra'd like Manning. What do you mean by that? I will.
Listen, I mean, anything's possible. I trust no one. I trust no one. And it was never about Assange as a person. It was always about the principle of free speech, press freedom, holding power to account, all of that stuff. So, I mean, if he was MK Ultra and he never comes back, or he comes back and he starts, stumping for the establishment, I'll be the first person to turn on him.
Hell yeah. We'll be right there.
Yeah. I mean, that's,
we don't like anybody.
If that's the case, I trust zero people. So, and again, it was never about Assange. It was always about the principle behind what was happening to Assange. So if he comes out and starts supporting U.S. empire and talking a lot of nonsense, I will be the first person to call him
out. Keaton, since you're back, you want to run that patron scroll? We gotta get it in at some point.
Not even your kids, Misty? Of course not my kids. You can't trust your kids. Do you have kids?
Yeah, exactly. All right. So we are running our patron scroll. Thank you very much to everyone who has subscribed. Don't forget to sign up at Patreon, Substack, Locals if you have not already. It is because of you folks that we are able to do what we are doing right now. Now, if you hate it, fair enough. You don't have to sign up. But if you love what we do, if you love that we're going to Chicago, where we're going to be hanging with Jimmy Dore, we're going to be hanging with Nick, we're going to be hanging with Kit, we're going to be hanging with Shama. We're going to, well, maybe we won't be hanging with Jill Stein. I don't know if she catches our show. If she catches our show, she's probably not happy with some of what we've said. But hey, man, we've had a lot of Green Party people asking, will we talk to her? Of course we would talk to her. We don't dislike Jill Stein. We don't have anything against her. So I am planning on going to the event that Shama and Nick and Jill Stein are doing. But the reason we're able to do that is because people sign up and they support the project. Unlike some people, we're not going to be like, oh, yeah, we're going to use your money and buy a van. We actually do what we say we're going to do. We told you we would go cover Day X for Julian, and we did it. We told you we'd go to Chicago. Hey, nothing to thank us for. That was an amazing experience. We got to see so many people out there who are really in the fight, who are part of the reason I'm sure that Julian eventually got released. All those people who are out in the street, especially when you do this kind of online organizing. It's just an amazing experience to actually see those faces and see all those people there and how many really are fighting that fight, and you're not alone.
And just really quickly, we just lost Allison Mason, who was a longtime Assange activist. She just passed away recently. So, I mean, just a shout out to her. I'm really happy that she was alive long enough to see him released. It's something that anybody who followed the Assange stuff and followed me through it, she was the one that took care of Eric Levy in his final years. If you know me, you know how much I love Eric. He was 92 when he got arrested. I'm sure people are, if you're familiar with the Assange case, you know who Eric is, but she was the one that took care of him, and she just passed recently from cancer. So, just wanted to give her a shout out for her many years of activism.
All right. Brundleden. Galloway lost me, and I consider myself a man. You were not very much like what the fellow was saying about Trump. You're not the audience that he was after.
We need that on a shirt. I consider myself a man.
I consider myself a man. With Scott Galloway's face on it. Keith, you want to do any Rumble rants? You want to throw up Rumble rants? No? Yes? Scorpionic Sag. Dear capitalist Zionist boomers and older Gen X, we hate your guts. Sincerely, socialist pro-Palestine, younger Gen X, millennials, and Zoomers. I think I'm right in the middle on Gen X.
I hate all Zionists, regardless of generation. Yeah. You could have just stopped at Zionist. Dear Zionist, we hate you.
Boom. Goo 81. Disney and Mark Hamill have single-handedly ruined Star Wars and its legacy. Well, if you saw my essay, I blame George Lucas. Goo 81. I got to an argument where someone says USA will remain a superpower as they have recognized universities like Harvard. I have to ask why they are the best universities. Could not answer. Yeah, I mean, they got the Sorbonne, they got Oxford and other countries. And hey, look, if you look at history, at one time, America was considered a backwater. Nobody would have come to America for their education. In fact, all the way really until the 20th century, if you were an American and you wanted to be considered well educated, you went to Europe. All of the architects up until the 20th century went to the Beaux Arts school in France to study architecture. That's why you look at the New York Public Library, you look at Grand Central Terminal, a lot of buildings around the country. They're in that Beaux Arts style, which was kind of a neoclassical Renaissance fusion style. As a painter, as a sculptor, if you wanted to get commissions, you had to be educated in Europe. It really wasn't until the 20th century that Americans started to take pride in their own institutions and develop their own artistic style that would be respected around the world. Point being, those shifts happen. Europe used to have that mantle. Now we have that mantle. Don't think you won't see a future where you have to go to Beijing University to be respected, or another university, but don't assume America's always going to have that status. Those things move around largely with the reserve currency. So we probably will not have that status for very long after we lose that. Charles Gracia, Trump's attack on Kamala's blackness works because it's true. ADOS blacks are organized and have noted the game that is played with, quote, flat blackness, unquote. Leftists can't hear this. Look up Breaking Brown and Tone Talks. Well, you know how much whites are out of touch? I don't know what ADOS is.
African descendants of slaves.
Thank you, Misty. See, Misty's more, she has her ear to the ground more than I do. GABA 44. Yeah, I never heard that before. Misty, do you know if Julian Assange will give any interviews in the near future, or does he still need time to recover, or has he retired from public life altogether after all he's been through? I mean, we kind of covered this, you know.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I don't know. I'm not Julian Assange. I know that when he was released, Stella implicated that he had no intention of going away forever, that was just not in his nature. Again, it remains to be seen when he will come out, if he does come out, what he will say, who he will be, how he will be, all of that stuff. So, I mean, I've been, again, trying to like make little pushes like, hey, it would be cool to hear from him. We'll see when that happens. It's been over a month now. So we just got to wait and see where it goes from here.
All right. RB Ham. Government is a great way to launder money to the world's billionaires, of which over 25% live in the U.S. This is why I am very sympathetic to anarchists, as am I. I'm not one, but I get where they're coming from. The amazing Blumpkin. He's reading it like something that was sent to him. Who's a good boy? Who's a good boy? Oh, no, he believes that shit.
Yeah.
You're talking about Galloway? He believes that shit.
He might be reading it, but he believes it.
Oh, yeah. He's a very arrogant scumbag motherfucker. That was not out of keeping with how he speaks generally. Philip Blair. He sounds like Heinrich Himmler with his "it's complicated" BS. Seriously, look up Heinrich Himmler's lecture to SS Gruppenführer on October 4th, 1943. That sounds like a fun way to spend my afternoon. Eric Rousseau, what is a man? Men can get pregnant now, so, you know, and what's funny is he's backing the party that argues that. A real man has a bonus hole. Yeah. Because we really should have done that boxing segment. Because we just had too much. We had too much.
I get it.
Kuznetsky Bassane. The Russian military is stronger than ever because of mobilization for Ukrainian war. No one can challenge Russia conventionally now, and the rotting U.S. empire keeps poking the Russian bear. Yeah, I mean, has anybody ever cracked a history book? You know, they have a vast country with virtually unlimited human and material resources. You are not taking them out. All you did was accelerate BRICS and everything it represents. Brundtland. When someone has to keep telling you he's a man, very good point. Very good point. Baby Ethernet. That Galloway Zoom moment could pass for AI, right? Right? Pete Sweet. Do you think Trump is exactly what the deep state wants? Are the people being shepherded toward another Trump presidency? If they were worried about Trump, don't you think they would have given a better
They're not worried about Trump.
alternative? Some people say that. Some people say that because I have said if that man is allowed to re-enter the White House and he's not on a tour, I'm going to have to rethink my notions of how much power the deep state has.
I think they want Trump. I think Trump is perfect for them. He's great for ratings for TV. He's great for fundraising. And he does, I mean, if you just look at his presidency, he does whatever he's told to do. I mean, he is not a threat to them in any way. The idea that he's fighting the deep state is absurd. It is absurd on every level. So I think that they're hedging their bets. I think that they're trying to get a feel for how public perception, public response to different things that are happening, that kind of stuff. But they're not afraid of Trump. They're not worried about Trump. Trump will be put on a leash. He will do his. I think that the only thing that concerns them about Trump is what I mentioned earlier, that he has no ability to know when to shut the fuck up. And I think that he's a little bit harder to control in that aspect, but they're not worried. Y'all, you don't get elected to the presidency if you're actually fighting them. That's just not a thing that happens. The electoral system is completely rigged, front to back, top to bottom. You don't even get considered for nomination in either of the major parties, or get even anywhere near a position of power unless you are controlled, and he is controlled.
All right, we moving along, Keaton? All right. So we have one last segment on the East Berlin side of the wall before we abscond to West Berlin and the Rumble side. So be ready for the switch. Okay, so Kamala, here's a legit line of attack that Trump could have invoked, because this story had already broken by the time he did that interview. There have been stories for years about her staff turnover. Some former staff members have come out openly to talk about how absolutely horrible she is to work for. When she was campaigning in 2020, I think it was the Washington Post did a whole write-up on how pretty much her entire staff quit altogether. So now this organization that kind of digs into records to find what's going on in Washington, opened the books, did some research, and found that Kamala Harris had an almost 92% staff turnover in her time as VP. Under Kamala Harris, the office of the vice president has been called a revolving door, a staff exodus of key aides heading for the exits. That's not hyperbole from the national media. Our auditors at Open the Books quantified an extraordinarily high 91.5% staff turnover rate. Elected in November 2020, Harris took the oath of office in January 2021. As of March 31st, 2024, only 4 of the initial 47 staffers from the first year are still employed consistently and without interruption by the vice president. Furthermore, the turnover chaos isn't getting better. In the trailing 12-month period, 24 staffers left. That's almost half the employees. The top to bottom dysfunction that The Atlantic referenced in October 2023 is shown in the reported payrolls that we captured. Quote, in her first year and a half as vice president, Harris saw the departure of her chief of staff, communications director, domestic policy advisor, national security advisor, and other aides. The semi-annual report of the Secretary of the Senate, among other things, lists the names, titles, and salaries of staff in the office of the vice president, OVP. In the most recent publishing through March 31st, Only 4 staff from the original 47 listed in the 2021 report remained consistently employed and are among the office's 50 current staff members. In the last year alone, 24 people left their jobs. In our 2021 reporting at Forbes, VP Kamala Harris is the least transparent elected official in the nation. We outlined the OVP's refusal to provide any information to the public and taxpayers. Her office denied our FOIA request and claimed that they were immune. Therefore, we had to rely on the U.S. Senate's semi-annual report for October 1st, 2020 to March 31st, 2021, which gives a list of the 28 staff members who had been hired by the new administration between January 20th and March 31st, 2021. Over the next few months, the OVP added another approximately 20 staff members. We calculated that for VP Harris's 28 staff listed in the Senate report, salaries added up to $2,334,223. But President Joseph Biden's congressional budget submission shows the OVP got $5 million for 23 full-time staff in 2021 and requested over $6 million for 27 in 2022. The OVP wouldn't answer for the discrepancy in budget and staffing, citing the earlier provision that states only federal agencies are subject to FOIA, and the OVP, it argues, isn't a federal agency. Vice President Harris, the second in command and possible next president of the United States, is the only elected official in the country not required to share her office's spending with the public. I never knew that about the vice president's office, that they're not subject to FOIA.
Yeah.
Since 2021, most transparent administration in history, folks. Since 2021, only 127 of Biden's initial 560 White House employees remain, a 77% turnover rate that would be considered high if not for Harris's 92% rate. He has the largest White House headcount since the Richard Nixon administration, who was the first president to exceed 500 staffers. Now Biden employs 565 staffers, 27 of whom are responsible for diapering and wiping his mouth. That's not in there. Costing taxpayers $61 million in salaries. That's up from the 524 staffers in 2023, costing $52 million. Biden has 152 more employees than Trump and 97 more than Obama, when each were in the 4th year of their first terms. Simone Sanders, Harris's chief spokesperson and senior advisor in early December 2021, was quoted in the Washington Post responding to critics of the staff departures saying, quote, "We are not making rainbows and bunnies all day. What I hear is that people have hard jobs, and I'm like, welcome to the club." Ugh. She left the OVP later that year. Quote, "Working for Harris is a nightmare, not just because she rides her staff hard, but also because she does so without the competence, decisiveness, and effectiveness that inspires people in politics to suffer under demanding bosses," Dan McLaughlin wrote in a January 2022 National Review article titled, "People Really, Really Do Not Want to Work for Kamala Harris." Okay, so speaking of Simone Sanders, it's always funny when these propagandists accidentally tell the truth every now and then. You know, every once in a while they forget themselves. So she dropped a little accidental truth bomb on MSNBC.
Experience had been, it was new for me when I worked for her because I had never worked for a high profile woman before. I had only ever worked for men. And there was one day at work where I was like, "Ma'am, you might be the last woman I work for, because this is a
there's a story there.
It's a lot. This a lot that we got to deal with over in here."
She forgot not to tell the truth.
Okay, but I have a question because Jimmy did a segment on this and I just watched that. And Malcolm in the middle of it said that he did a little bit of like looking into that, the whole segment there. And he said that it seemed as if she was talking about that she was getting attacked, racist and sexist attack because she works for a woman, that it wasn't because of Kamala Harris, that it was because in working for a woman, she was getting more attacks than she did when she was working for a man. Now, that doesn't make a whole tremendous amount of sense to me. I don't know. I haven't seen the entire segment yet, but regardless, it is undeniable at this point that her turnover is incredibly high, that the rumor mill has been spreading for a very long time that she is horrible to work for. I don't know. And Simone Sanders is awful anyways, so if she can't hang,
I don't know, man. If you look at the words around it, she may very well have been saying that. I mean, it would be very on brand for her to be talking about how terrible the attacks against Kamala Harris are. Yeah. And then in the middle of that, dropped a truth bomb, because if you look at the sentence structure, if you look at that paragraph, she's talking about what it's like to work in that office. Yeah. So now she might have gone ahead and spun it, realized, oh shit, I shouldn't have said that.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. No, what I was really talking about, but I don't know, man. It seems pretty clear to me she told the truth by accident on the air, based on, because it's not like we have
regardless of what
here.
She said, it's clear that this is an ongoing issue. I mean, you don't have a 92% turnover rate unless you're awful to work for, especially in a position like that. To be able to work for the president or the vice president's office, I mean, that's a pretty good gig. And to leave that position, there's got to be some pretty good reason for that. And 92% turnover, that's insane.
92%. 90 and and you have this long history. It was the same thing on her campaign. She couldn't keep staff. And one of the staff members, when the campaign imploded, before she got chosen for vice president, wrote an open letter talking about how horrible it was, the way people were treated, and that hopefully the end of this campaign will give her some time for reflection. There was a father of an intern who wrote an op-ed talking about how his son, when he interned for her, never met her. The interns were not allowed to look her in the eye or address her. Only senior staff were. And everyone had to stand up and say, "Good morning, General," when she entered the office. Now, this is all in keeping of how I have long read her as a psychopath. I think the reason she laughs at weird, inappropriate moments is because she's a psychopath. She doesn't understand.
Duping delight. That's called duping delight. When psychopaths laugh at inappropriate moments, it's because they know that they're lying to you and they think it's funny and they can't contain that. And so that's a real thing. It's called duping delight.
Right. I believe that this is why she has such weird, off-putting behavior, because I think she's a psychopath. And when you hear these and not being able to retain people, that's in keeping with a psychopath. They're not able to maintain long-term relationships with people because they can't help but to behave like what they are, psychopaths.
Yeah. And Simone Sanders also did another, I don't know if it was the same interview or a different interview, but she said something else where she was talking about how difficult it is to work for Kamala Harris. And she said that around the office, they called her the interrogator. Because that's how she conducts herself like a cop or a district attorney would and interrogates people. So this is not a one-off. This is not the first time that Simone Sanders has ever said anything, but when Jimmy was talking about it, apparently Malcolm was looking into it but that didn't make a tremendous amount of sense to me.
I mean,
so I don't
honestly, my take, I mean, I haven't seen that whole thing. My take is Malcolm is wrong.
Yeah,
I
tend to agree.
My take is he heard some spin
I love
Malcolm.
Malcolm.
Trying to do. Yeah, but I think he's probably wrong. He probably heard some spin and looked at it, and I'm sure she did say it's tough. I'm sure this conversation was taking place in that context, and then she dropped a truth bomb in the middle by accident, and then got back on message. But if you look at that segment, no, come on, man. That sounds like the way they would have spun it once the clip went viral. No, she was talking about that, which I'm sure she was overall. but not at that moment. Not at that moment. She let a little truth slipped out. Okay, so let's go to super chats before we go over to the Rumble side of the wall. Misty and DD go together like jellied eel and mushy peas. More, please. That's sashimi seductions. That's a show joke because I've been complaining about the food in England ever since I was there for Day X, particularly the jellied eel that the gentleman whose Airbnb I stayed at, he wanted me to try. But now I'm committed. Now I'm committed. I said I would when I go back to England. Amash Red, fuck YouTube for not letting me post my profanity-related super chat. Well, we read it. Free Palestine. We knew what you meant. Seb Griffiths, Kamala in Finnish means horrible. Yeah, I heard that. She's literally horrible Harris. Yes.
That's
that
amazing.
Translates as horrible. Yeah. Not Hager even. Mark P. Thako, SEK 50. I always forget what that is. Here in Sweden, politicians and military hate Russia because of our history. Paranoid, verging on 30s German hate levels. They love Charles the 12th, 17th, 18th century king. Eric Rousseau. So Kamala Marianne would be the super pitch ticket. Yeah, those two I don't think would get along. Too much narcissism in one room.
Yeah.
Artie Blarty Fart Blast. So plausible in tone and cadence as his words reveal the banality of evil. Yeah, he's something. I assume you mean Galloway. Amash Red. Blue, red, two sides of the same coin. Isn't President Harris a more entertaining outcome? Trump's shtick is getting old. I guess.
Maybe.
I mean, if you're talking about what's good for the due dissidents, a Harris or Trump presidency, yeah, I guess Harris's word salad and watching her burst out laughing as she announces the nukes coming over the horizon, probably better for us.
She just gets on my. I mean, Trump gets on my nerves too, but like Harris's voice, I can't. I mean, I think Trump's probably funnier, just in general. She might be more entertaining. But I don't know. Also, that makes the shit libs, I mean, unbearable. But then again, if Trump wins, MAGA's going to be unbearable. So, I mean, it's just, I don't know.
Mean,
there's really
the shit libs are going to be unbearable no matter who wins.
Yeah. Yes. And actually, they'll be unbearable even if, like, probably worse if Trump wins. They'll be.
Oh my God! And living in shit lib central here, so you don't have to deal with that in Ohio. In New York, every time I bike by the Trump Tower, the Trump Hotel, I'm going to be confronted by these shit libs.
Well, to be fair, I don't have to deal with it. I don't have to deal with it where I live, but if I drive 30 minutes to the north in Columbus, then I have to deal with that because it's shit lib central. Like all the three major cities in Ohio, shit lib central. Everything else is pretty much Trump country.
At least you got somewhere to go.
Yeah.
All right. Don't forget to go over to dudissidents.com/Rumble. Yes, Keaton.
Yeah. So we have Rumble rants. We'll do those on the Rumble side. All right. So we're going to make the switch now.
Okay.
Minutes, so a little break, and then we'll be back over on the Rumble side. So there you go.
All right.
Are you cool on time? I don't want to keep you all day.
I'm fine.
You sure? All right.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Are you handling?
You say yes to this guy. Yeah, I'm handling the switch over.
You've had 2 years of practice keeping the show tight, and B, you don't really like people, so it's easier for you to cut them off.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I talk a lot, so you have to cut me off.
It's fine with me. I just don't want to.
No. It's the chats and everything. Like I spend a lot of time on them. Keaton's a misanthrope, and that really helps with the job of emceeing the show. All right. So you're going to handle all the outro and everything?
I'm handling the outro, and then I'll give you a call over on the switch. All right, so folks, there'll be a brief break, a little intermission, and then we're going to continue the show over on Rumble. See you soon, everybody.
All right, tell them to be.